What's going on, everybody? It's that time, episode number 52. That's right, a year's worth of Truth Will Set You Free. It's been a little longer than a year, but this is about a year out from what really catapulted us to having a voice in the world of truth, media, science, race relations, etc. This is episode 52 of Truth Will Set You Free. We've got the man, the myth, the legend himself. Yes, I'm talking about myself, Anthony Russo, hosting with SUNY Blanks on this one. And we've got some special guests. We do have somebody from slightly across the aisle, kind of middle ground, but just with some disagreements, Michelle Hollis and Dr. Joel Hirschhorn, which is going to be amazing. The author of Pandemic Blunder. So make sure you join us. Hit the share button. As you guys know, if you haven't noticed already, welcome to 2021, middle of the year, and the algorithm is real. So please help us by hitting the like button. Even if you don't want to share it, please hit the like button, and we'll go ahead and get this show started. What's going on, everybody? Of course, SUNY, the first thing that I see is we want Blake. Chris says, boo, we want Blake.
Boo, Blake's not here. Get over it.
See all you guys in the comments. That's the way you can help us out. You know, by the way, if you notice, there's a green screen behind me. Usually there's a purpose behind the green screen, but it was actually freezing earlier, so we're going with just green. I just felt like being green in the background. Why? Because I said so. So go ahead and help us out. Put in the comment box where you guys are from. Please share this out. As you guys can probably see, between SUNY shows, my shows, any kind of conservative anything on social media, we're not halved. We're down to about a fifth. We are about a fifth. Why do you see this too, SUNY? People keep saying there's commercials showing beforehand during my show. I have no idea how to turn that off. People have been saying that during all my random lives. No
Really?
idea.
Do you have ads running?
I usually have ads running when I post. I have no idea.
I don't know. We have to look into that.
Anyways, Eric, one of our big donors, thank you so much. This is our first episode back since we had our amazing Operation Take Back America event. Yeah. Chris got some of his shirts today. Love it. Hope you're doing well, brother. Throw up those likes. And you know how I feel about it. If you are comfortable sharing political stuff, share it. If you're not, I understand. I'm changing that statement. Share the post. Share what we have to say. Be bold. Be strong. This is the only way our voice continues to be heard. People continue to say that, well, it's an echo chamber. We've done the best we can, and we continue to strive to have conversations with the opposite side. But echo chamber or not, get the voices out there and realize that the echo chamber is actually bigger than you think. And maybe that starts to blend into the other side as well. So that's going to be my suggestion. Couple housekeeping before we bring up Dr. Joel. I'm not getting it. Yeah, there's no notifications anymore. Yeah. Absolutely none. I talked to Matlock today, who is on OpsLens as well as has his own radio show, used to be on The Blaze. And he honestly said, like, if you think that the social media is going to get any better from this point forward in terms of the algorithms, you are insane. So as much as I've always said, I want to stay off the rumbles of the world or whatever, he motivated me to realize that's potentially where we're going to have to go for some of this stuff. We're going to keep it here until we are SUNY'd.
Listen, I'll be back in like 17 hours. So you guys be on the lookout because I'm coming back. I'm coming back swinging, but I'm gonna do so responsibly. I'm not gonna hop out the box like I normally do. Dang.
Oh man. So all right, some things to remember. If you guys haven't seen this already, there is a sale going until tomorrow on our website for gear. As you can see, a very popular shirt. I'm awake, not woke. Got a compliment at the gym on this one. I was at the gym. because that's the best way to fight COVID. FYI, that's your patriotic duty. I want to bring that up to you too, Suni. I don't know if you saw that. It's something to think about before I talk about the coupon code. Jay said that it was the V word was a very patriotic thing to do. Anyways, if you use the coupon code long weekend, you get 25% off anything at the website. That's hashtag BetheChange, spelled out hashtag BetheChange.com/shop. You can find it from the main part of the website. Again, that's 25% off, which is essentially meaning we're not making any money. I just want people to start wearing these t-shirts so people can see them. I see people are getting their shirts in the comment box, which is awesome. Nicole she actually got a notification. That's great. What do you think about the V word being patriotic, Suni?
I think Jay is out of his mind. And I think he does stuff for shock value. I don't think he believes in the stuff. Like there's no way possible that he thinks that. This is, number one, it's not mandatory because it hasn't been FDA approved. They're still testing. They're still figuring out what's what. And to make somebody feel bad or be like, you're less patriotic for them actually using their brains and being like, I'm going to wait, and when there's better testing and I know what's what, maybe or maybe not, I'll get it. It's no different than the flu shot. You have a choice.
I'm going to ask that question to Dr. Joel when he comes out here. I think that's an interesting, I don't get it. We're hearing that some workplaces are now being allowed to make it mandatory, which I think it's getting to the point where it's absolutely absurd. Let's see. We got tomorrow, amazing episode of Changemakers. I want you guys to join us for that. We got William King Hollis, old friend of mine. It's actually 2-year anniversary when him and I met. He is he's a Les Brown protege, and he's actually started to blow up ahead of him. He was on the Tom Bilyeu show a couple weeks ago, which is like next level. And this is a guy that went from homeless, mom passed away from a drug addiction, all these crazy things, to now being one of the top motivational speakers in the world. You've probably heard his voice on Motiversity. He's got the #1 football speech of all time. He's got over 500 billion views cumulative based on his voice. It's insane. So I'm very excited to have him on. Again, make sure you join us for that tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern time. That's all I got. Facts. Anything else? Any other? Oh, if you, in terms of the people that won free stuff, we have the list. I think Nikki is working on it. If you're watching, Nikki, and putting the pressure on you, you got to make sure we get that with the help of Christine, and we'll get those t-shirts out to everyone. And honestly, last thing, after talking to Matlock, you guys got to subscribe to the podcast. Do us a huge favor. Even if you don't listen, it's how we get picked up on that end. And that is a place that we can, all of our shows, Make America Think Again. Let's see, Conservengers, Truth Will Set You Free, Changemakers. They are all up there. Please subscribe. Go to the Apple Podcast is the easiest place to do it. I'm going to throw that banner up in the bottom. And then before we bring on Dr. Joel, any other news with Primetime Patriots you can think of?
No, no, we don't. There's not much going on. We're just reporting the regular news. We just did a show. You guys can go back and watch after we finish here. We have some more cool merch up there on a website, www.primetimepatriots.org. Go check out the website. Other than that, let's get the show started.
Yeah, let's do it. Last thing, Cash. I don't know if Cash reached out to us. Cash is having a rough couple of days, and he does not want, in terms of being in jail, and actually I want to ask Joel about this too. I love that they're now bribing the V words for people in jail that have not been found guilty of anything yet. To be very clear, they're saying they're not allowed to get out. It's 22 hours in and 2 hours out, no haircuts, no nothing. If you do not get the V word, which to me is absolutely absurd. Anyways, he's just getting frustrated in there because this is truth, and he wants me to get this out there, and he doesn't want sympathy texts from people. He wants people to start reaching out to their local legislature and whoever they can, the Newsmaxes of the world, the Fox News of the world, whoever that will get the story out there. But somebody today was trying to plead guilty, and the lawyer said the judge is not accepting guilty pleas right now. The person just wanted to get out and plead guilty and take his whatever, and they're not allowing it, which is now making people freak out. They feel as though they are stuck and nothing. And these are people that committed, at worst, trespassing on the Capitol.
Crazy
stuff. Whew. All right, guys, I'm excited about this. I love when we get somebody that, because people say, need more experts. And I do enough research to kill a small horse, but that does not make me who I am. So I want to introduce our author with us. Dr. Joel Hirschhorn worked on health issues for decades. He's a full professor. He was a full professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. He directed medical research program between the Colleges of Engineering and Medicine. As a senior official at the Congressional Office of Technology Assessment and the National Governors Association, he directed major studies on health-related subjects, and he's testified at over 50 U.S. Senate and House hearings and authored hundreds of articles and op-ed articles in major newspapers. He served as an executive volunteer at a major hospital for 10 years, and he's a member of the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons and America's Frontline Doctors. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Joel Hirschhorn.
Good to be with you.
It is my pleasure. How's it going?
Okay, I'm okay.
So before you go through the book, and we're going to tell everybody about Pandemic Blunder, since we talked about it before you came on, what do you feel about somebody saying the V is patriotic?
Oh, I think that's nonsense. I think we need more people to follow the science and be honest about following the science. And the more informed people are, the less inclined they will be to get a jab or a shot. In fact, a new survey just out from Kaiser Foundation shows that about 70% of Americans are reluctant. They have hesitation or rejection of getting a jab or a shot. I think those are smart people. I follow the science every day. I spend many hours looking at the latest research, and I can tell you that there are very serious side effects of getting a jab or a shot. I say this, I took the jab months ago, many months ago, because I have a serious heart condition. And since I work in a hospital, I was able to get a shot early on. If I had to do it over again today, I probably would not do it. And I probably would not consider getting a booster shot anytime in the future, because I think the science is telling us a very strong story that there are a lot of people, some are dying and some are just suffering a lot of side effects from getting the shot. And I think this is serious business. And I think there's a lot of coercion going on. I mean, I think in a sense, many Americans are being blackmailed. There are parents who want to put their children back into classrooms, and the schools won't let the children back unless they get a shot. There are young people who want to go to college, back to college, and colleges won't let them back in unless they get a shot. And now we have major employers saying their workers cannot come back unless they get a shot. So I think there's coercion and blackmail going on, pushing this. And I'm very troubled by this because the theme of my book, Pandemic Blunder, a big theme, is that we had, as of March 2020, going back over a year, we had a lot of great data coming out that we had treatments to deal with COVID-19. And wonderful pioneering doctors like Dr. Zelenko in New York, who wrote the foreword for my book, and other doctors that I remain in close contact with, Dr. Fareed in California, Dr. Tyson in California, Peter, so many great doctors who have been trying to foster this idea that we have a treatment. And the first chapter in my book, what I do is talk about the history of medicine. And in the entire history of medicine, what did physicians and doctors of all kinds always attempt to do? They wanted to act quickly when their patients had symptoms of any illness or disease, or had a positive test for an illness or disease. The idea of first do no harm really also triggers this other principle: act quickly, act as soon as possible to treat your patients. And what troubled me going back into the early days of the pandemic was that I kept seeing treatment, early action by physicians was not being promoted by the US government. And that to me was a tragedy. So there was a kind of hidden secret pandemic strategy which was being pushed, And the idea, basically, in plain language, it was the wait for the jab strategy, okay? Rather than early home or outpatient treatment, wait for the jab, wait for the shot. And in the meantime, the latest data, which I think you can believe, CDC kind of data, is that over 600,000 Americans have died from COVID-19. Now, some people question, well, maybe it's a little bit of overcounting. There might be some overcounting. But what I say in the last chapter of my book is that 70 to 80% conservatively of COVID deaths could have been and should have been prevented. And in the last month or so, a famous doctor working in the field, Dr. McCullough from Texas, he upped my numbers to 85%. So that's why I say now, whenever I can, over 500,000 deaths of Americans could have been, should have been prevented. And by the way, if you look at the latest data at a national level, every month, 15,000 more Americans are still dying from COVID, okay? Mm-hmm. And globally, over 3 million people have died from COVID. Now, to say that as much as 85% of all of these deaths could have been prevented, but that the government blocked early treatment. And that's a big story in my book, is that the government, through guidance issued by the National Institutes of Health and the Food and Drug Administration, official federal guidance, basically blocked most physicians, the vast majority of physicians in the United States, it blocked them using cheap generic medicines, HCQ, IVM, that had been around for decades and with no safety issues whatsoever. In fact, what's interesting, the cheap generics were fully approved by the FDA, whereas the jabs, the shots people are getting today, they're not approved. They are experimental medicines, basically, not fully approved by the FDA. So, in Europe, they talk about the population is being treated like guinea pigs, okay? And in a sense, that's true. To take experimental medicines, Peter McCullough, this famous doctor out of Baylor University in Texas, has looked at the data, and what he says publicly now, when you look at all of the deaths associated with people getting the shot or the jab, we're approaching 5,000 officially. Harvard University did a study and said that number could be 10 or 100 times higher because you can't trust the data that CDC uses. So we're talking, what McCullough said, though, that when you look at the numbers, of deaths associated with the jab, and you look at 250,000 ill effects associated with the jab or the shot, any medicine creating that kind of data would have been taken off the market by the FDA in years past. But FDA is not treating this new genetically engineered medicine the same way that previous medicines have been treated. And McCullough is absolutely right. And this is a guy who has more medical credentials than it's unbelievable, actually. And so when he says he doesn't recommend anymore people getting the shot, that's serious business as far as I'm concerned. And I deal with a lot of physicians in the US and around the world. I belong to several groups and we're in close contact. And I'll tell you, the data keeps rolling in. And, and Dr. Zelenko, who's one of my hero, basically, he now uses the term, regret, regret, jab regret.
Yeah.
And it's people like me who got the shot early on, many months ago, actually. I have some regret. I've been lucky. I haven't had any serious ill effects, but I do regret seeing all the science that's coming out. Follow the science. And rather than follow the science, I think a lot of people in power were following the money.
Joel, Dr. Joel, that's why I have a question for you. So out of curiosity, you said that there's this plan and we've talked about it, but I want people to hear it from a doctor. what is people, even Jay, our friend liberal Jay, he says, it's not like he says, I don't really trust the government that much, but does the government really have this sinister plan in mind? Is it really sinister? So if somebody were to ask you, why would the government do this, in your opinion? Why would they want to not use these early treatments?
Well, I think there were people with a lot of power, particularly Dr. Fauci at NIH. He always had a close relationship with drug companies going back decades. And I think a group of people, I just published an article today. Yes, I think there was an evil, criminal pandemic strategy created in the early days of the pandemic. And it was all aimed at getting people to be very fearful and to create public demand for the shot. And that's why they blocked early home outpatient treatment, because if we had wide use of these cheap generic medicines, you would have eroded public interest and public demand for getting the shots, okay? And so it was all about money. It was always about money. That's the way I view. I don't trust. Listen, I used to work in the government. I used to work for the U.S. Congress. I don't blame people for not trusting the government. But the reason you shouldn't trust the government is because they took away what we call medical freedom. Medical freedom, the freedom of physicians to do what they think is right for their patients, and the freedom of patients, to choose which medicines to take or not to take. That's what medical freedom is all about. And what this pandemic has done is kill medical freedom. So when I say there's over 500,000 American deaths that could have been prevented, that's an evil pandemic strategy that promoted that and allowed that. And the only rationale I can see is that there were people in power in government who had cozy, close relationships with drug companies, and they've created a global trillion-dollar market for people to get the shot, the jab, all over the world. And unfortunately, this is still costing people's lives. So that's the way I look at it. I'm not a conspiracy nut, but I do follow the science. I study the science and very carefully. And I'm saying every day that I keep following the science is I get more convinced. And there are great doctors in the U.S. Dr. Reicher from Yale University, Peter McCullough from Baylor University, Zelenko in New York, Fareed in California, Tyson in California. We have a lot of great doctors who are telling the truth. You won't get the truth from the government. You won't get the truth from big media, but you can find physicians and medical researchers who do tell you the truth. The question is, how do you get good information? People ask me why I wrote the book. Well, I already had published a number of nonfiction books in my long career. I didn't need to do another book for ego's sake. I wrote the book because I knew that we had to get better information out to the public about this pandemic. So I'm trying to get people to see how the government has failed them in this pandemic. And it's a failure of the government in collusion with big media and drug companies, okay? I don't call it a conspiracy, but I do see collusion there. And that's what my book, Pandemic Blunder, is all about, is revealing the truth. And then how people can help themselves. I have, in the last chapter, I promote what we call a cocktail or protocol. If you don't want to use any kind of medicine, prescription medicine, there's a great cocktail that I've been promoting. Lots of other people have backed me up on this. It's vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, and an old supplement called quercetin. You take those four. I take them twice a day. That cocktail, the whole purpose of the cocktail is to improve your natural immunity. And I want to emphasize that word, natural immunity, okay? The shots, this genetically engineered material that people are getting jabbed with, that creates a kind of artificial immunity. And all of the latest, best medical research is showing is that if you have natural immunity, and how do you get natural immunity? Well, you get it if you're a kid, you have it. And if you're an adult and you've been infected by COVID-19, you now have natural immunity. Trust me on this. If you've been infected, you have natural immunity, okay? Why would you take a shot to give you a layer of artificial immunity? And I'll tell you, the best researchers and doctors are saying, if you have natural immunity and you get a layer of artificial immunity created in your body, that's when you become vulnerable and susceptible to all kinds of ill effects, serious ill effects, serious disease and illness. That's what's happening around the world.
Hey, Dr. Joel. So, question for you. There is some people that get, and I've got a couple questions from the box. Carolyn, I see your question. That's a good one. I want to ask that. I also want to ask a little bit about the younger age getting the jab. But the question that I have is, if somebody gets it once, we do have a lot of cases where they get it twice, and I've even heard of people getting a third time. So, with natural immunity, the one thing that I have not heard is somebody getting it a second time and dying that second time. So explain to me a little bit more. If people were to ask, say, no, that's not true because you can get it twice.
Well, no, what's happening, and Harvey Rice from Yale University and other great experts, what they're saying, what they're seeing, okay, is that it's called breakthrough infection. It's people who've gotten the shot are getting COVID again, okay? If they've never had it, okay, they're getting it maybe for the first time. But people who are getting the shot are getting, most patients, doctors are now reporting from around the country that most of the new COVID patients they're seeing they got the shot basically, okay? Why is this happening? It's because their bodies have been weakened because they took the shot, okay? By the way, here's an interesting fact I want to emphasize. The shots are made of genetically kind of engineered material, all right? This material that they put into your body does not kill the virus. I think people have an old notion that when you get a vaccine for a disease, it's going to kill the cause of the disease. It turns out that these new materials that they're putting into your arm, they do not kill the COVID-19 virus, okay? See, you can still have the virus in your body, you can shed the virus, and this is a serious problem, okay? So you got to understand the limitations and the downside of the material they're putting into your body. So we have breakthrough infection, a lot of people going into hospitals now with serious symptoms because, in fact, they still are susceptible to virus. The shot material they put into your arm, it does not kill the virus. It does not safeguard you from getting COVID over and over again.
Dr. Joel, so Suni's going to have a question for you. Before that, though, that didn't quite answer because I do know of, and I know what you're saying, but I do know of a couple people that got COVID June of last year, and then they got it again in November. I know like two of them before they ever got the shot. So how would that be explained?
Well, it's hard to explain because they should have gotten natural immunity. And there's one reason why people, it's called, what kind of physical medical condition are people in? What are what they call comorbidities? And it turns out in the United States, when you see a lot of younger people, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, even 60s, and they get COVID, what comorbidity do they have? And the most prevalent one is obesity. Obesity, okay? It turns out if you have obesity or you have other illnesses or diseases, then you become much more vulnerable to getting COVID-19 infection. So I'm a little surprised. I haven't heard much about people getting a second or third iteration of infection because they should have natural immunity again, but that has to be weighed against what comorbidities do they have. Do they have obesity? Do they have diabetes? Do they have any kind of lung or heart condition? Okay, that can explain why they're getting
that makes
sick.
sense.
Yep.
And what I would say to that is I have not heard somebody having a second round of it that was more severe than the first. And I have not heard of anybody, and I've looked up news. If there is something in the audience knows that, let me know. And I'm going to go ahead and let Suni ask the next question. Go ahead, Suni.
Sorry. Okay. So I've never been infected. I've never had COVID. I've never worn a mask. Like, what advice do you have to people that just we've never contracted it? I don't think I had the flu one time, but outside of that, I'm not somebody that really gets sick. Not even a cold.
Well, if you take care of yourself, if you eat well and you exercise and you're just a healthy person, you're going to have good natural immunity, okay? And that's what's important. We don't put enough emphasis on lifestyle, basically, on human behavior and how people eat. And one of the biggest mistakes by the US government in the early stages of the pandemic was that they were telling people not to go outside. Well, that was absolutely the wrong advice. They should have been telling people, go outside, get fresh air, exercise like mad every day. That would have been good advice. Telling people to stay at home was the worst possible advice. Where was most of the contagion going on? It was going on inside of homes. We knew that. We knew that from the beginning. By the way, in my book, which I wrote several months ago now, I can tell you we had data that mask does not work. Masking does not work. I have data from a big Danish study in my book. It showed unequivocally masking does not work. And now we've had remarkable number of studies, research studies that have come out saying that, proving that lockdowns do not work. Okay, so we know that these contagion controls, that's what they're called, masking, lockdown, school closings, all this social distancing, basically, they're not the panacea. They're not the real solution, okay, for this COVID-19 epidemic, okay, pandemic. This is science. I mean, that's why I say Fauci and the heads of our government agencies never followed the science, okay? Never did the right thing. It's awful.
He hit a real home run with NZT back in the AIDS days. So Fauci somehow got called back up from the bullpen after having a complete failure in the 80s and 90s and came back.
And by the way, he repeated that in about the early months of the pandemic. What did Fauci do? He put his money behind and getting approved a $5,000 drug treatment, remdesivir, by the way, which should never have been approved because the trial showed it did not save lives. It cut hospital stays by a couple of days, did not save lives. Yet Fauci got remdesivir, $5,000 a shot, by the way, hardly used at all anymore in this country because it's an ineffective medicine. But he got it approved, okay? But he wouldn't get the early treatment generics approved. In fact, he blocked
no money in it.
No money in it. Money in it at all. Okay. So and by the way, there was a federal stockpile of HCQ, which Trump created. It was never used. Has never been used.
All right, so here's the way the rest of the schedule is going to work. We got Michelle waiting backstage. She's going to be up, and we've got 2 questions from the audience I want to take. I'm going to see if Michelle has any questions for you. I'm going to make a suggestion. Misty Huffman is in the comments. She has become a friend of mine. We talk a lot. She was somebody in the beginning that she was a pulmonary therapist, and we were like this, Dr. Joel, because I was talking about it. She's like, no, but the peer-reviewed. And ultimately, we've come to the center ground where we realize that there is so much more research than what is provided, to the point where she's lost it with the medical world. So I do want you to look up something I talked about with you before the show. I don't want to say anything that we've said on the show is effective because who knows what'll happen. But yeah, right. No. So what he was talking about earlier, it's terrible for you. Just to be clear, that's our stance. Kidding. Totally kidding. But RLF 100, it's just something to look into. And I'll send you that information later. And I'm going to tell you already, I would love to have more conversations with you. With that said, Carolyn Spoonmore's comment is a good one. Then we'll talk about youth. So Carolyn says, somebody please help me out. I hope she's still watching. I'm on the fence about the vaccine. My doctor believes in the science that the V and the science of the V. And last Thursday, for the second time, urged me to get this. But this time he said, please get the V because you are one of the people that if you got COVID could end up really sick, maybe even dangerously sick. And she has type 2 diabetes, smokes, probably COPD, overweight, and she's already lost 54 pounds. I wonder if before I bring you on, before I unmute you, I wonder if the doctor mentioned the number one thing that you should work on is quitting smoking. And I know you know that, Carolyn. I'm not belittling you in any mind, but I wonder if that was the number one thing he might have said. Dr. Joel, what do you think about this?
Well, there's no doubt about it. People who have obesity, diabetes, who smoke and are, they are in more serious risk in terms of having some serious symptoms from COVID-19. Again, if they don't treat their bodies well, they're in danger. If they got early home or outpatient treatment, even if with the comorbidities, they'd be all right. Two of the most famous doctors working in this field, Dr. McCullough in Texas and Dr. Tyson in California, they both got COVID. And then they went public, and what did they say? They said, well, immediately, as soon as they got symptoms, they took one of the generics, IVM, okay? And that was the end of their COVID story. No more problems, okay? So not enough people have gone public with what has worked for them in dealing with COVID, okay? But again, I want to emphasize that we have well over, I'm sure, a third of the country that has very good natural immunity in dealing with this COVID-19 virus.
So in her case, even with her, and I see that you said you're quitting smoking, Carolyn, you've got a whole bunch of people with BetheChange that will have your back to be your accountability partner to get you to quit smoking. And I love that you're already on the train of losing weight. I love that. But with that said, Dr. Joel, with somebody at risk like her, and Melanie just said on the bottom that she's facing cancer and the surgeon did not recommend that she gets it, which I find fascinating that this stuff isn't getting out there. All people are hearing is, no, I'm not an idiot. I follow the science, because the only science they see is Dr. Fauci on TV, regardless. So with that said, Dr. Joel, in her very specific case, would you still avoid the V?
If I was in her situation, I would. I would think about taking the 4 vitamin supplement cocktail that I described in my book, and a lot of other people now have supported. It's all about increasing your natural immunity. By the way, in the last year or two, I lost over 65 pounds. So I recommend, I know you can lose weight because I've done it and I've kept it off. But I would say the downside of getting the shot is really significant, even with serious comorbidities in terms of worrying about the COVID-19. You got to now start to worry about getting the shot also.
And that fourth thing, Marla, is quercetin. And Nishimta, aka Mama Russo, agrees with that, doctor. All right, Dr. Joel, one last question for you, then we'll bring up Michelle. And I'm kind of looking at all these different questions because there's been some great comments also in the box. Before we get into the kids, there's one from Chris. It's kind of funny. Smokes, has sleep apnea, only breathe through one nostril, and overweight, was labeled essential. What would you suggest for somebody that does that kind of work, that has these kind of health conditions at this point in life? I mean, smoking is obviously time to quit smoking, and I know how difficult that is. I know that's not easy. But what would you recommend in that instance?
Well, again, always talk to your own physician that's always good advice. But again, try to access the good science information that's on conservative websites, okay? The article that I just published today is on a conservative website, NOQ report, and it has all of the detailed information on the ill side effects of the shot. I've used the latest information. It's available to people, but you won't find it in terms of big media, mainstream media, social media. You got to get to the conservative websites where people like me can get their articles published, okay? I want to say this too, Dr. Zelenko and other great physicians, they couldn't get their data published in major medical journals. You got to understand, the system is corrupt in every respect. The big time medical journals depend on their advertising revenues from big drug companies, okay? So the good physicians and medical researchers can't get their articles published in the big journals. They published in more obscure places. It takes more work on the part of the public to access this information. But again, go to conservative websites and you can start to see the truth about the shots and the side effects of the shots again, and how to just create a healthy body. There are some great doctors, again, saying what I'm saying. You got to get into a healthier lifestyle, okay? Eating better, taking vitamins and supplements, exercise. I go out every day. I walk outside every day, okay? And I don't wear a mask. And masking is nonsense, pure nonsense.
Could not agree more. One of the reasons that I got booted before. So the last question we have before we bring up Michelle, and while Michelle is up, I have another question because people are asking about the death toll on the jab, but I want Michelle up here. In terms of youth, they are pushing it to this 12 to 18-year-old group that has literally the lowest percentage of death, and even younger have even a lower percentage of death, less than the flu. Why or how? What is the purpose of giving it to kids unless it is this weird, sinister Bill Gates population control conspiracy theory that I don't want to say, but I'm saying it because what is the sense in making sure these kids are vaccinated?
There is no science justifying the shot for people, for children, people in their 20s and 30s that are healthy, to make people going back to college or back into the school classroom to get shots is not following the science. It's only creating more of a market for people to make, the drug companies to make trillions of dollars from selling the shots and the jabs, okay? There is no science justifying what the government is pushing at all. It's nonsense. It's just an evil. That's why in the article I wrote today, I call it an evil pandemic strategy, sacrificing the lives of people in order for drug companies to make trillions of dollars.
Love it. Okay. So Dr. Joel, I'm going to introduce Michelle. She's a good friend of mine. We're going to have some clearing conversations. I'm excited about this. I'm going to see if she has any questions for you. And then I have one final question that's very important with this death count that's consistently getting challenged when we bring it up. So I will ask that before you leave the show. Suni, before I bring up Michelle, is there any final questions you have for Joel? I know he's incredibly thorough, like legit was answering things before we could say it, but do you have any questions?
You answered a lot of my questions before I could get them out. I think this show is like pretty essential because a lot of people have questions about the jab, C-19, they're scared. And I think you restored a lot of hope in a lot of people. So thank you for being here. Because I'm definitely going to go get that cocktail you were talking about.
and read my book also.
Yes.
I'm going to read it.
And everybody make sure it's just very simple. Go to Amazon. It's called Pandemic Blunder. And you can find it. Just make sure you see his name below, copy, paste it. And then the article I keep putting in the comment box so you can read that article called Exposing the Evil People Killing Pandemic Strategy. Any final words before we bring up Michelle, Dr. Joel?
I just want to say in the book, I give all of the websites that people can go to get access to the real data from all over the world on early home outpatient treatments. There's a bunch of websites. Anyone can access these public websites and you can look at the data for yourself. So all of that information detail is in Pandemic Blunder.
Love it. All right, stay up here for a second for me. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to introduce our next guest, my accountability buddy when I was going through what I talked a lot about the Breakthrough Accelerator for the business and trying to grow that. We're still working on that. So if anybody is big on investing and wanting to see this through with what we're doing with Primetime Patriots, American Snippets as well, please let me know. Obviously, we've got a big vision for what we're trying to do. Operation TBA was the first of many hopefully successful events. So hopefully that all goes well. But Michelle was my buddy to start, still is my buddy. There's some things that I have said on social media that she's not a huge fan of. And she's like, this is stupid. Why do I build up anger when we can have an adult conversation, which we don't have enough of? So I'm going to introduce Michelle right now. Michelle Hollis, welcome to the stage. Unmute your mic for me. Hit the button. Hit the button.
Okay, there we go.
Hey, Michelle.
gets to be heard. Okay. And that is my belief. I'm Michelle Hollis with Vision Board Music and Vision for the Soul, particularly. Anthony, I'm so glad that you invited me today. I just want to say that first and foremost. And I've really enjoyed hearing from Dr. Joel, and it's just great to be here. And Doctor, I agree with most everything you're saying. In fact, I think the important thing, that the first thing I want to say is that the truth is what matters. It doesn't matter it does not matter. Putting politics behind it is I think is what's closing us off. And that's how I feel. You know what I mean?
Love it.
But I don't want to get ahead of you, Anthony.
No, you're great. So I see a comment that's causing a little fight in the side. And I would like Dr. Joel to address it, because they're having a little tiff about masks. And I know this is one of the issues that Michelle and I had was a post about masks. So go ahead, Suni. What were you going to say?
I'm going to keep my mouth shut. I'm going to be good.
So they're having a discussion about masks, and they're essentially, somebody's saying, why is it so bad to wear masks? And somebody made a joke about a fart smelling through jeans. Why would a mask actually work? So from a scientific perspective, for GH in the comments, can you explain your reasoning why the M's covering the F's don't actually show research that works?
Well, for one thing, the viral molecules, the COVID-19 molecules, are so small that they can get through basically any kind of mask. The other thing is, when people wear a mask for a fairly long period of time, it restricts your oxygen. Okay, it's unhealthy to wear a mask, especially if you're exercising. Okay, the mask, and again, we have good scientific research. People have really looked into this. And what they found is using the mask does not curb the virus, okay? It's not the explanation why you'll see lower hospitalizations or lower deaths or lower cases. It just that's the truth of it. That's the science of it, okay? And there's a lot of downside of restricting oxygen intake. So a lot of people who have some illness problems, some medical issues, they ought to be concerned about restricting their intake of oxygen.
So I want to be graceful as I say this, because this is what got me in trouble before. Logically, if you get sick, if you get infected with C19 and you've had it for a couple days without knowing it, it's in the incubation period. And in those times, you're wearing the M word all hours of the day. You're actually, once you're starting to get sick, wouldn't that be multiplying the amount of virus going back into your system, or am I completely off on that?
The important point is the first stage of C19 is the viral replication phase. Okay, that's what happens in the first several days of once you get infected. Okay, so what you have to do is stop the viral replication phase. If you don't stop it, then you go to stage 2 and 3, and that's where you have lung problems and heart problems and why you need hospital care and all of that stuff. But you only have what Zelenko discovered in March of 2020, and French research before him, that if you give the right medicine within the first 3, 4, 5, even 6 or 7 days, you'll stop the virus in its track, basically. You'll stop the viral replication phase. Masking won't stop it, okay? That's not going to stop it. Once it's in your body, it will start to replicate. So then you've got to have a treatment that will stop the replication phase.
Early.
And that early on, within no more than a week, okay? And that's what we've learned from use all over the world, okay? We have enormous amounts of medical documentation on this point, okay? If you get the right generic medicine into people in the first several days, they're home free. That's the point.
Can I just say something real quick? Just real quick. GH is not here to learn. He's here to attack Trump followers. And I think that's whack, bro. Political parties, where you stand on the political spectrum, it doesn't matter. This virus doesn't care if you wear a red Trump hat. It doesn't give two flying fucks if you wear a Biden hat. You know what it cares about? If you're unhealthy. So if you want to wear a mask then wear a mask. Sitting in the comments section arguing when you have a doctor here, an expert, because we're told to follow the experts, right? But if the expert doesn't align with your political views, you want to cancel him out. Move on, sir. And I'm saying this for everybody in the comment section. Don't argue with the troll. Please don't. That's ridiculous, man.
Michelle, do you have any, before we have Dr. Joel leave us, do you have any questions for him? I know that you have intimate life situations, as do I, with COVID. Do you have any questions? I mean, he was very thorough, but do you have any questions for Dr. Joel?
Dr. Joel, you were very thorough. I actually, I had a cousin that got, the illness, and that got ill, and then and my sister had a friend, and my cousin found out to take elderberry and zinc, and they both felt better the next day. So I thought that was interesting. So it goes really a lot with the cocktail that you're talking about. So I'm definitely, I agree with you. I believe that way before this ever happened, there's been big problems with the medical system, and us focusing on, treatment instead of preventive. And I think that that's where we all should be amplifying, is the preventive of everything. So I just wanted to say thank you.
I agree.
Yep. Excellent. Well, my final question for you, Dr. Joel, because I want people to get this answer. People are asking, did I get GH to agree with me? Cool. In terms of the VAERS, the VAERS, which is published by CDC, it's showing 5,000 mortality number of 5,000 in relation to people that have gotten the V, but people will argue that VAERS or VAERS is not accurate because it's personal reporting. Can you answer those people that say VAERS is BS? This is all a lie. People can say whatever they want, etc. Go ahead.
No, if anything, the VAERS system undercounts the mortality numbers. Okay, it undercounts. This has been shown by Harvard research, people who've looked into this very carefully. It undercounts. So that's, if it's showing 5,000 mortality, I am confident in my own mind that the number is probably at least 10 times greater. Again, the numbers that just came out from the UK, which are a much smaller population, and they have their own system of data collection, is 1,000 deaths from C19, okay? That's in the UK, with a fraction of the American population. So this is happening around the world. It's not just what we see happening in terms of the VAERS database. But again, wonderful research has been done by epidemiologists and medical researchers, and we know that VAERS undercounts. It doesn't overcount, it undercounts the ill effects of the jab or the shot. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Dr. Joel, I cannot thank you enough for being on the show. If it's okay with you, I would love to bring you back. As I mentioned earlier, I want there's somebody that is intimately on the side of creating the V word, that is friends with a wife, and she was speaking very much on his behalf. If there's a chance I can get other experts on the other side, I would love for you to be able to have a conversation and we can see how that pans out. And just if there's more updates and if you have more articles that come out, please, I love that you reached out to me. I'm more than thankful for it. I want to reach back out to you and see what I can do and if we can get back to it. Again, if anybody could buy his book, it is Pandemic Blunder. The biggest thing we talk about on this show is being able to have a hard, there it is right there, is being able to have a hard conversation. And you can't have a hard conversation without facts and research. We always talk about starting with empathy, but once you get past the listening phase, if you've got some hardcore reasons to put people in their place and educate them so that they cannot over-educate you, you can still listen, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be equipped with the massive amount of facts. So again, Dr. Joel, thank you. I'm going to put the article that you just wrote. It's a long one. I kind of skimmed through it while you were on, and I liked it. I read an article, and I liked it. I'm like Katy Perry. Totally different song. But here you go. It is up in the comment box. Please click on that link. Final words, Dr. Joel, what do you got for us?
No, I appreciate the opportunity. And just, you got to work hard to get good information. Good information does not come easy, does not come free. You have to spend time. You got to spend significant time accessing good information. And that's what this is all about.
Joel, you're the man. Dr. Joel, I appreciate you. And you have a fantastic evening. And we took more time than I expected. So thank you so much for being on.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Take it easy, Doc. Michelle, sorry that was I know I said like 30 minutes and he was dropping some nuggets. So I just let him go. So Michelle, introduce I know you already did. Introduce why we wanted to have this conversation. And as always, I start this out and Suni will say the same thing. If anybody is mean to Michelle in the comment box, I will find you, I will hunt you down, I will kick you in your shin, and it's not gonna be nice because the whole purpose of us bringing people from the opposite belief systems, I'm not going to say opposite side because I don't think she's overly political and set in her beliefs, but from the opposite side of us in several ways, the concept is to bring them on and meet with kindness and listening. And then we have informational conversations. Simple as that. So Michelle, go ahead.
Okay, awesome. So what I wanted to do, because, and this is why social media, I think, is dangerous. And just even being here on this show with you today, lets me realize, okay, my emotions in things. And when you get sound bites or when you get flashes of stuff, it brings up a whole mess of other beliefs that people are holding in that one situation when they, in that one situation that they are in direct communication with. So for example, well, let me just do the clearing conversation because I think it'll help a lot. So basically, let me explain. I'm going to explain what a clearing conversation is because I'm doing the format because I think it's the most efficient way. In the accelerator that we were in, we had one of the modules. They said that to have a clearing conversation properly or in the best way, that you start with the facts, and then you put the emotion. Then you explain how it made you feel. Then you say the story that. Like for me, it would be the story I made up about Anthony based on the facts and the emotions that came up. And then I take responsibility for my contorting of the situation or my perception of the situation. And then I ask if you have anything to clear. So does that work?
Works for me.
Okay, fantastic. Okay. So the situations were, there was a young Black woman or a child, she was a teenager who was killed by the police. She had a knife in her hand. I honestly can't remember her name at this moment, but because there's just so much of it that we see.
Makai Bryant. Yep, Makai Bryant.
Makai Bryant. Okay, and one of hundreds since last year, even, and which is true. And people were upset. She had a knife in her hand. She was murdered. The information that was on the news was that she, was about to kill another kid or stab the kid or something like that. In the post that I saw that you posted, it said that, something about her being a surgeon or, oh, it's okay, something about her being a surgeon and just kind of making light of the situation. That's how I saw it. And then also the other one was that you're coming from a vacation on a plane. This was the recent one that we talked about. And apparently the stewardess singled you out. She stated that you thought maybe because of your American flag, but there were other people on the plane that were asleep, but your mask had slipped down to under your nostrils. And she was making a big point to you to put your mask back up and acted like she had asked you to do it before, but she had not, according to you. And so those are the facts as I see them, as I saw them. So how that made me feel, this one is more for, this is more for the young girl with the knife that got killed by the police. I felt disgusted. I felt annoyed. I felt underthought of. I felt angry. I felt misunderstood, and I felt detached from you, my friend. And I also felt compassion for both of the stories that I just told. I felt a compassion of this, that nobody won in the situation with the kid and the cops, and nobody won. You know what I mean? There was no, that was a really just a horrific situation altogether. I felt like for the plane, I felt maybe compassion for the stewardess. You know, I felt maybe, you know, who knows, she could have had someone that just died. She has thousands of people coming in front of her all the time. The science may in fact show that the masks are not effective. But if we are here to, I felt that it's unfortunate that if we're here to combat media and the misinformation, that should not take our empathy away. It should make us understand why people are fearful and not look down upon them, but more understand. And then also just consider that, like for me, I'm not working in the public. So it's easy for me to not think about how someone might feel afraid.
Fair.
That's what I say.
Okay.
Okay.
So then what do I do? Is this where I forgot what's the final, what's my response step?
Just clearing, if you have any clearing conversation. I mean, if you want to clear anything with me, that's how the format goes. But you know what?
So I'll just, since it's, I mean, a little bit of a show format, I will say, first off, I apologize to anybody that I ever offend if it's not intentional. If I am intending to offend, which does sometimes happen depending on the conversations I'm having, I would not apologize for that. But this was purely unintentional. The one thing I will say, I don't, and I know what I put in my posts very often. I've been scrolling to try to find it. I never referred to any joke about a knife and a surgeon, to be very, very clear. There was no surgeon comment. I would never
scalpel, maybe you said, or maybe scalpel.
Was it in the headline of the post, or was it a response to somebody?
You know what? And this is, and on, you know, being completely honest, I'm not sure if it was a response or the headline. It was an IG. It was an Instagram.
Oh, weird. So okay, then I can find that probably a little bit easier. With that said, so I'm going to ask you the question, and part of being the media in this case, and I'm going to gloss a little bit over the mask thing, because the whole mask thing was actually it was kind of a joke, and it wasn't the biggest deal on the planet. I took a mask and I put it over my head that she gave me. And she did ask me twice. Once when I entered the plane, which technically she should not have asked me because I was slurping a drink right when I came on the plane. Regardless, she asked again, and I simply went like this. And I know that there's always three sides of the story. This is one of those times I'm going to say there's not. There's two. And maybe she made the mistake, and this is understandable. She might have made the mistake of thinking that she'd already said something to somebody else and it was me, which is when I simply asked, and I said, because she come up and said, "This is your last warning. I'm not going to ask you again." And I said, excuse me, I'm sorry. And I immediately pulled it up and I said, excuse me, I have no idea when you've asked me. She goes, "I've asked you several times." That's when I got a little heated. And I said, "What several?" Okay. And that's when she backpedaled after like me getting a little huffy to going, "I asked you when you got on the plane." And I go, "That's not the definition of several." I don't know if it was a mistake on her part that she was not willing to go, "Oops, you know, I am in a customer service business. I should probably not be a dickhead." But at the same time, my post was as a joke. With that said.
It was light, because you even said at the end, and I'm just acknowledging, not to backpedal on what I'm saying, but I also,
and you did.
I also said, I said, if it is about that, then if it's about her being rude to you, then shame on her, because that was unnecessary.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? She could be having a rough day. I just had a customer service conversation before that about my RV. I don't know if I told Suni this. I've never had somebody say this. I was complaining about my RV's air conditioning, and there was a broken part, and this woman told me it was going to be 2 to 3 months, and I got huffy puffy, which is understandable when you own a gigantic RV that's brand new and having all these problems. And the woman legit yelled at me. She goes, "What do you want me to do? Do you want me to quit my job? I'll quit my job." And I'm like, holy shit, is this really happening right now? And then we de-escalated each other. We talked ourselves down. All right, so the next part, which is more important part, and this is where I really want Suni to engage as well, because Suni and I did this video immediately when it came out about this girl. There was not supposed to be any jokes made about this girl. I never wanted there to be jokes. If there was a surgeon comment, I've got no idea when it was said. If I could figure out when it was said, and I'll look on my Instagram.
I'll look for it.
if you can find it, I would love to know exactly what that was said. But ultimately, the reason why we jumped on this was because there were already people in the streets chanting Ma'Khia Bryant, say her name. And like you said, the comment of one of hundreds. This is not one of hundreds. That is blatantly factually incorrect. It's been proven that's incorrect. Factually, this was an armed girl that was about to stab somebody else. So the question I have to ask back to you at this point is, did you ever see the footage?
I didn't want to watch it. I saw about it, but I didn't want to watch it. Now this is the thing. And this is my point with it all, especially when it comes to, and this is just where I stand. Obviously, your show is going to be highlighting these things. And so I have to, as a human being who does not want to be inundated with arguments about Black people getting killed. You know what I mean? I'm kind of sick of it. You know, it's very hurtful. I mean, it's the truth. I mean, and honestly, it's exhausting. We talked about this, Anthony. You said you watched This Is Us and you understood what
the frustration, because you see it in your face all the time, and that's what sucks about it.
And then people are just and that people are just so detached from. It's just not even like the humanity of it all. And that's from everywhere.
Suni, why is it important for us to show this? Why was it important for us to show that?
Because we're going against false narratives. 18 people were shot unarmed last year. 18. And 97% of those were people. I'm going to say 100%. I'm not even going to extend that much grace because I'm tired of the lies. They're either not complying, they're either belligerent and ignorant with police officers, or they've got a warrant and they're just not. The overall moral of the story, you're not complying. And when you make yourself a threat, not only to police officers, but folks around you, you get dealt with. The last weekend alone, 48 people were shot in one city, 10 dead. Black folks we don't get up in arms about killing our own. And that's the most infuriating part of this entire thing. I personally am tired of seeing Black men paraded across the media, men and women, for false narratives. Police brutality where? I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's an individual basis. It's not happening to every single Black person. Ma'Khia Bryant doesn't represent me. Neither does George Floyd. Neither does Breonna Taylor, Rashard Brooks. I don't relate to any of those people. I didn't put myself in a position to even have to deal with officers. At the end of the day, we need to focus on the truth of the matter. 18 people were killed last year. 18. 48 shot in one weekend in one city, 10 of those people dead. But 18 people for the year is more upsetting to the Black community. It's a slap in the face, not only to the inner city that doesn't necessarily have the resources and opportunities to get out like I did, and it's a slap in the face to our youth because we're feeding them crap.
Go ahead, Michelle.
No, I hear what you're saying, but first of all, there are people that are doing things for our community and that are lifting their voices to bring us together as a community. That's not the conversation I'm having. That's not. So I just want to make that clear. And based on what I've read and seen, there have been more than those deaths. So how do we know what is true and what is not?
Because these are statistics presented by the FBI, by the federal government. All these different numbers are actually concrete. The same government that's saying that white supremacy is the biggest terrorist threat, domestic terrorist threat in the country, somehow is saying that, while the actual numbers of murders from a police officer to an unarmed Black person is under 20 every year. And I think it was 9 2 years ago. I think it was a little higher in 2020. It was literally 9. It was under that. So the reason why you see them, and again, now this girl does not count. And I think it's I understand why you didn't want to watch it, but I think it's unfortunate that there is judgment cast on people that did for the purpose of exactly what Nikki says here. The reason why we have to talk about it is people in asshats like LeBron James get on Twitter and they post the officer's photo, which is as close to doxing as you could possibly do, but legally not. So you post this picture of an officer saying that he is essentially painting him as a modern day Nazi. And we come out and do the story and we show it because this is what actually happened. You probably heard the initial story, which is this girl called and said, "Oh my God, save me. These people are trying to hurt me." If there is a retraction to the story that nobody heard, I know that's going to come as a shock. She wasn't the one that called. Somebody else called because she's been known as crazy. She was trying to hurt people in the house. She charged a girl with a knife, a 7-8 inch knife, and the cop made a split-second decision to save the girl's life, not knowing who called. He just sees somebody that's, unfortunately for her, dumb enough to start trying to stab people when a cop shows up to break things up. So we showed this not to be funny, not to present something of saying, look, black people are crazy. We presented it because there was already businesses being burned down. There was already people storming the street. There's already LeBron James who's coming out saying, here we go again, cop killing innocent black person, when the black person was trying to stab another black person. So again, I am 100% apologetic that it was taken the wrong way. The reason why most of the things that I say are taken the wrong way by people that care, that you care about me, and I know that. That's why we're having this conversation, but the people that used to care about me is because they don't actually follow through and listen to what is actually going on or why and what I'm saying. And that is my clearing side of it, is to say we have to combat the lies because they are making things even worse than they should be, because the comment that you made is exactly the problem. And I'm saying this in the nicest way possible. Hundreds like this is factually, there is no way to skirt around it. Even if you multiply the number by 10, you're not even barely at 100. You're not even at 100 last year of police that killed a innocent. Well, it's not even innocent. It's somebody who was unarmed. That doesn't mean they're innocent. They could still be trying to charge the police. So that makes the number even less. So that is why it's important, is that kind of misinformation, and that's why we say the things that we do.
And one thing I can say, because I'm not afraid to be wrong. You know what I mean? And the information that I saw that could be incorrect is fine. I don't care if it was 5 people. I just my thing more. But now that you explained it, and this is why clearing conversations are good. But then the issue is having, next time I'll call you. You know what I'm saying? And we won't have to have a big, online conversation. But this opened up the lines back of communication between us, because sometimes when you go to approach the situation in the comments, it becomes, you can't communicate properly.
100%. 100%.
And that's why I wasn't saying anything in the comments, because then it could have just escalated unnecessarily. But what you're saying, and the reason that you brought it up, is it makes good sense. My thing, and what I would like to invite to people to understand, is that it's not an either or either. It's not that Black people don't care about our communities, and no, that's not the truth. The truth is that we all have a responsibility to promote the better things. And I think that's another little point that I would say, is that I'd love to see you promoting the healthier things than only addressing the issues. But this is your platform. You know what I mean?
But I do. That's the thing. So ultimately, I find a huge importance, and soon you'll say the same thing, I'm sure. I find a huge importance in truth. And truth, as it says, will set us free, hopefully, of this bullshit division we have that's media fueled, that's politically fueled. And if we don't come to terms and be honest with ourselves, at the same time, I just shared something from American Snippets earlier today, which was this amazing clip of a dad talking to his little kid, a Black father, Black kid, talking about loving people of all races, and essentially talking about how critical race theory is absolute bullshit. And it's this adorable video teaching a kid that they can be anything that they want to be. Doesn't matter if they're black, purple, white, whatever. That's the positive. We share the positive. But with the positive, there is not the impact in showing the misinformation. Suni, would you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm on every single one of these shows. There's not a show that Russo doesn't do without me. And we had King Randall on each one of our individual shows where we highlighted Black excellence and people that are doing something. But I'm not willing to turn a blind eye and ignore what's happening. I'm from the inner city. I am the Black statistic. I tell people this all the time when they watch me. And it's devastating what's happening. Yes, 50% of our population is fine. But the other 48% of us, we're suffering. And to no avail. There is no relief coming for us. Our streets are ran by gangs. These so-called civil rights leaders, they don't show up when it matters. I can't tell you how many victims I've spoken to their parents where Black Lives Matter doesn't show up. Reverend Jexy Jackson doesn't show up.
It's hard for any one person to do anything. I think that's the main thing, is how I feel, is that we all get to do something as much positive as we can, rather than amplifying the negative. But in your defense, Anthony, on Facebook, I had gotten so emotionally worked up that I just stopped following you on Facebook, but I follow you on IG. So I may not, and I say that just to illuminate that that's not the answer either, so.
It is though. Everybody's unique. People can, if things bother you, that's the freedom of being an American, and that's fine. True. And that's honestly that I would in some ways rather that than people who find one thing that I post that's I'm not talking about you, that come in and be like, see, you're a hateful whatever, and I'm like,
no, and that's not fair.
It's frustrating. So I want to really quick address Telljoy. I wonder where Makai's due process was. Let me tell you how real life works. So, and I'm saying that was where, did you see how I said that, Michelle? That was me being purposefully an asshole. Let me tell you how real life works. So you're worried about the due process. What's that?
That's a nice question. She's not being rude.
No, it's such an uneducated question that I had to get a little frustrated. So you're literally worried about the person holding the knife over the person about to get stabbed. Where would the due process be for the person that was about to get killed in broad daylight? If the girl was dead on the ground already and she had already stabbed and killed her, and the police showed up and didn't see what happened, and the woman gave up and said, hands up, whatever you want to say, that's where you get due process. If you are stabbing somebody in front of a police officer, you have revoked your right based on the laws of this country and common sense and logic. You have lost your due process. That's just how it works. Sorry.
And I understand that. Oh, sorry.
If this young lady was white, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Period, point blank. She wouldn't have gotten the mainstream media's attention. The only reason Ma'Khia Bryant got it is because the officer's white and she's Black. And that's messed up, because white people are dying at higher rates than we are due to police. This is a factual statement.
And that's what I wish that I wish that there's a way, and we're not going to resolve this here. I mean, in this moment, but I wish there was a way that we could get together and work on actually taking over the big media and taking over the governmental bodies that are pushing all this information out, in a way to realize where we actually have a lot in common and that we actually do want the wrong thing.
We would love to, Michelle. But we would love to have, I agree with you, but look at what happens. We are now in a government and a country with big tech running us, where right now we've got 125 people watching, where 3 months ago under a different administration, 4 months ago under a different administration, we had 500 people watching these shows. And not just because of cash, even after cash, as the transition happened quietly, because of this, because of whatever big tech's deal is made, nobody's paying attention. But like Anomaly, who is a conservative, not even pro-Trumper, but conservative, who has over 1 million followers, he goes live. He used to have 7,000 people watching him. He has 950. So the ability for us to beat the mainstream media has gotten more and more and more difficult. And even funnier, let's look at exactly what's going on right now with the Wuhan lab. We got our videos pulled. We got them taken away for saying this a year ago, saying it was made in a lab, showing saying these things. And now it's becoming truthful. So as conspiracy theorists have been right on at least one thing, and now there's no recourse. Essentially, we've been trying to say these things all along. And I want to address the comments regarding a GH is in the comment box fighting again. But he's saying that our doctor was a huge Trump fan, whatever. So in the article that he's talking about, he said the U.S. needs a disruptive president like President Trump. Guess what? I said the same thing. And I was back and forth about Trump a lot.
I'll tell you what, I am not happy with this administration either on a lot of levels. So I'm just going to be honest. I thought the same thing, not in particular to the individual, but I'm like, this isn't working, So, I mean, there's a lot of issues. And I think that for me, and this is the emotional side of me, and I'm not saying that it's right, but the emotional side of me would like to see, I don't believe that every single time that a police officer has killed a Black person, there's always an excuse. Like, it'd be nice to have somebody just say, to actually look at a situation and say, man, they shouldn't have stormed in her house and killed her in her sleep. I mean, I don't understand why that is such a hard thing to
she wasn't asleep though. That's another lie from the media. She wasn't asleep.
So everyone's saying all this until, like everything that I've looked at, the court, the trials and everything, and none of that is true.
It never was said in court. I'm going to let Suni go through that, but that was said strictly by the media early on and perpetuated, but that was in court 100% dispelled. Suni, go ahead. Explain Breonna Taylor.
Daniel Cameron came out after all the investigation was done. They came out, they did the ballistics. We waited for that. They found that, yes, officers did fire, but the first shot was fired from her boyfriend. She was standing behind him. At no point in time was she ever in the bed.
Because they didn't know it was the police.
If that's his excuse, he's a drug dealer. You have that thought in the back of your mind when you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing. In fact, officers didn't even use the no-knock warrant. They knocked on the door and announced themselves. So how you didn't know that was police is beyond me. I looked at the footage of the household. You can see how far the front door is from their bedroom. It's nothing but a few feet. It's a small townhome apartment. I've read through every single case file. I've read the documents.
Did everyone actually, and I'm asking you this not to be combative, but to actually ask. So did everyone, all the neighbors say that they did not hear them announce themselves? And then
one person heard. One person.
At first, yes, they were all saying we didn't hear. And then eventually one of the neighbors came forward and finally told the truth.
Well, I mean, that's hard to say, what the truth is as far as that goes. However the case may be, it's just the humanity of it, like I just don't understand how, even if I don't know that he was a drug dealer, I don't think she was a drug dealer. It's just like, it would just be nice. It would be humane to say that that's an unfortunate circumstance. But
we all said it was an unfortunate circumstance. But here, and I almost posted this the other day. Look at it like this: nobody deserves to die of lung cancer, right? It's sad, it sucks. Right. But if you smoke, you are creating a greater chance. It's cause and effect. And if you die from lung cancer and you're a smoker, it's sad, it's unfortunate, but you put yourself in a situation that has a greater percentage chance of dying of lung cancer if you are unfortunately being a part of illegal acts. And again, I don't even know the extent of Breonna Taylor's responsibility of this. I mean, I know.
3 years of investigation, man. 3 years, and this girl's tied up with all these people.
2 different drug dealers, etc. You're putting yourself in that situation. She essentially is the smoker, and she died from lung cancer. It's the same concept. It's sad no matter how you look at it, but when you put yourself in a situation, that you are getting investigated, unless you just want people to no longer be investigated for dealing drugs or gang activity or anything like that. If you want that to end, that's a whole different societal question, and we could have that. But when you put yourself at risk, you unfortunately could die. The circumstances. The reason why you, Michelle, and a lot of people felt so upset about it is because it immediately went to your heartstrings because of misinformation. It was told that a black girl was still trying to be a nurse. She was dead. She got shot in her bed. She was an upstanding citizen. Her mom loved her so much. This was a perfect girl that did nothing wrong. And she got killed by police officers while she was sleeping. None of which is true. And that initial story.
She wasn't in school?
No.
She wasn't in. Well, see, that's not what I saw. So then here goes the extra empathy then. The extra empathy, then there's a whole nother layer of empathy for people like me who are looking at getting misinformation, but it's still a lack of humanity. I mean, it's just
it's a lack of truth. It's a lack of truth.
There's a lack of truth, and then still, I think in the dissemination, if you want to help people, this is my recommendation. If you want to help people like. If you want to help people like me that are getting misinformation, then I think that there's a detachment in the expression of the information from your side. That's just how it is perceived to me. Now, I don't watch everything that you put out, so I could be.
No, I want to ask you the question. Until us having this very blunt conversation, you already said that you would have not watched the footage of Ma'Khia Bryant. You didn't watch the footage. Yeah. You probably, and understandably so, avoid conversations like this because it is painful, because it sucks. It's shitty things. So how is it that I could properly present information that would get through to you and other people that expose the truth? Like you're learning the side of the news that was not re-reported on mainstream media until days later or months later.
And I can't really speak on it because I'd be lying, because I haven't looked at all the information that you all are posing. So for all intents and purposes, I don't know who to believe. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that I think you're lying, but you understand what I mean. I mean, I can only go on what I have seen and what I've read.
I want you to take notes and Google it after we get off the call, because I'm telling you right now that I would swear on my life and my everybody's life that what we have talked about, and some things I'm still, I'm not 100% sure on my belief on masks, but I am 100% sure that the news that has, or the information from the court and the cases and the redactions and the changes of this testimony are 100% factual to this date, to this time, in terms of Breonna Taylor and Ma'Khia Bryant. There is no other way to look at it. She had a trying to stab another girl. These are factual items, point blank.
And I totally feel you on that. I don't know. I'm looking on. It's really crazy, but I'm looking on here and I can't seem to find that post either. But I haven't. I see the post and there's nothing. I said, and I'm going to pull up the quote, Suni. Let's see. Let's see. Where is it? Okay. So I'll put Telljoy's quote up. But what I said in my post that got a lot of views, and I actually lost an old friend over this because she said it was the most horrible thing to show. And I explained to her why I was showing it. I said, we don't typically share videos like this on BetheChange, which we don't necessarily because it was graphic. But in order to get the truth out there as fast as possible so people can see that this cop saved a life, we find it important to share this as soon as possible, or ASAP. Hopefully someone that needs to see this to understand the media narrative being spun will see what really happened. #share. It seems people don't see what is happening because it's happening so quick. This woman has a kitchen knife in her hand and she's actively stabbing people, which she first pushed somebody over. It looked like she stabbed them right when the cop got there, and then went after a girl up against a car, which later videos showed the girl thanking the police officer, saying that, that girl was trying to kill me. Anyway, so I see nothing on this post that's about a surgeon, about a joke. Like somebody else makes a joke. It's got nothing to do with me. Somebody said Black Lives Matter. But, I mean, that's not me. I can't control human beings' comments. Right. No, then that's, and that was a video that you shared? See, that's, okay. then
it's on my Be the Change page, not on my. I did not share it on my personal, so it's on Be the Change _USA.
Oh, okay. That's why I couldn't find it. Okay, I couldn't find it. So, I mean, I think a lot of it is emotional, and it's hard to have a conversation based on facts alone when there is a human side to it, and the way to, I don't know, I mean, you know what, like I said, I can't answer those questions as far as how to do it. You should do it the way you're doing it, because that's who you are. And what I should do, what you can count on me, because that's the last part of the clearing conversation, is what you can count on me from is to talk to you if something hits me the wrong way, because now it's so long later, I can't find the actual information. So I'm just going off of my emotions right now, which is not a way to really move forward.
And if I see a comment from you, I'm going to reply. There's very few people I don't reply to. Specifically you, I will 100% reply. If I say something shitty, there has been times where I was like, probably shouldn't have said it that way. Doesn't happen very often. It does happen on occasion. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Finish your statement. You're fine.
I was just going to say that, that's the reason why coming on us having this conversation in a big way, or in this way, is a good thing, because it makes me pay more attention to what it is that's triggering me. What's triggering me could have maybe it didn't even have to do with you. Maybe it was something I saw right before that, and then I saw yours. True. And I put the two together. I mean, I'm just being honest.
No, I get it. And honestly, it might be, we're sick of seeing this shit. We're sick of seeing it on TV. Yeah. And I get that. And I'm going to ask you, I want to have a question about BLM after this, but Tell Joy said at 9:27 Central Time, does anyone deserve to die because they have a shitty boyfriend? Suni?
Can I please respond? I'm a no bullshit type of person. Okay? My mother always taught me, you go to sleep with dogs, you wake up with fleas. In this situation, she put herself in these unfortunate situations to potentially have something bad happen to her. Imagine if cops never knocked on her door and the next drug dealer that they were in a war with decided to blast on all of them. She wouldn't be in the news. We could give two craps about a Breonna Taylor. How many Breonna Taylors are killed by people that look just like us every single day? I can't tell you how many times I've cried watching another black man dead, not due to cops, because it ain't happening like we kill our own. It's not. And I get called a coon, a sellout, a bedwench for saying the truth. The truth is the truth. It doesn't mean that I don't have empathy for her. She's dead. Nothing I say is going to bring her back or put her in the grave. She's gone. But the facts of the case, it's not happening because she's black. There are so many other Breonna Taylors. I've known Breonna Taylors growing up in my neighborhoods, killed by their boyfriends or an opposing leader in the next gang. And the government don't give a shit about that. Black folks don't give a crap. You know what they do? I'm going to put you on a t-shirt. RIP. Free Pookie. No, it's enough of that.
That's a little general. That's a little broad, but
I've come from this era. This is where I come from. I don't know how that's broad when that's what I've seen. This is what it's like there.
Well, I wouldn't say black people in general are like that. I think that's part of that's creating a different kind of narrative that's unfortunate, and that's on the same end of the other end of the same stick. Just to say that that black people don't care, and that's what black people do is put shirts. That's not true. I'm black and I don't do that. And I've had friends that have died in a lot of situations. It doesn't.
In Suni's defense, Michelle, you did just do that.
Huh?
I mean, your reaction to my post and why we're having this conversation essentially was doing exactly what Suni just said. Yes, we're not talking about black on black crime, but you were leveling the issue with police on black brutality instead of black on black, and saying that there's things happening there's things happening in the community that black on black crime, or the community is doing stuff with it. I have yet to see it, and that leads me.
It doesn't happen, man. I grew up in the poorest, one of the poorest cities in Erie, Pennsylvania. Philly is next on the list. We don't have black leaders stepping up, and I'm not going to continue to lie to people. We don't have black leaders stepping up for us.
We have we in our accelerator, we have a nonprofit that brings black kids into off of the streets and puts them in programs so that they can learn coding. And I mean, those are the little things. I mean, it's not as on a big scale as Black Lives Matter, but
that's the point. That's the problem right there. BLM gets more attention than the inner city. But BLM didn't donate a dime to that money to the inner city. They took it and bought mansions and everything else.
I'm not representing BLM.
The problem with that specific charity that you're speaking of, I understand they are doing good things on a certain level. I disagree with a lot of what they do because they are pushing a critical race theory, and they're pushing this ultra respectfully, and everybody's got their mission. Everybody has, if you are trying to do good things, I fully support the concept behind it, but I cannot support anything that involves white guilt.
No,
I can't do that.
I understand that.
I get daily frustrated when I have certain conversations where it is, you're not empathetic enough, when all I do is create empathy for those that don't have. But at the same time, why the fuck am I being blamed for something, an American history that is a black eye, no doubt? I had nothing to do with slavery. I've done nothing but support black friends and black community leaders and donate and give money. And I've actually, to be totally honest, I have gotten absolutely bitch slapped by some of the black people that I have invested in over the years. People that I have staked my reputation in have screwed me over, and I still continue to do it because I think it's the right thing to do, and I want to uphold the black community. But at the same time, if somebody's going to tell me that I should be guilty, or I should understand critical race theory, or should go through these things, that's where I draw the line and become confrontational and say, you can piss off. I don't know. I'm not going to get on my hands and knees and be like, I'm so sorry that people that I'm not even related to, because I'm Italian and Jewish, I'm not going to get on my hands and knees and ask for forgiveness for something that all I've done is positivity for the black community. So I think it's so misguided. And that is my mini rant about that charity. And that is not somebody supporting the inner city gang youth and trying to get them out. That is not what they're doing. Much like when we talk about the failures of Black Lives Matter, which finally is now coming out, that even the Democrat or left side, and I know I just said leftist, and I see that you have an issue with people saying leftist and GH, you are welcome on this show any time you would like. Please, God, please come on. Would love to have that conversation. But you want to see somebody doing something. The guy that left the Minneapolis St. Paul, I'm trying to bring up his name. You might remember it, Suni. He just outed BLM. He was their BLM chapter leader in Minneapolis St. Paul in 2016. I'm trying to get him on our shows. He left in 2017 when he realized that there was nothing about BLM, that these liberal celebrities, the news, the charities that we might speak of are all plastering BLM all over the place. This charity did nothing for Black lives. They made it worse. They propagated riots in areas that were black communities. They destroyed black businesses. And for some odd reason, because of a white person not supporting this organization that's full of shit, they're deemed racist. That hurts. That starts to get really fucking frustrating on my end. With that said,
I'm not saying any of that.
I get it. I know. No. I know you're not. I'm giving you why when I bring my heat to the conversation, that passion is because I think it's bullshit. So when you look at what the guy made,
go ahead. I just want to make sure to say that that's why I'm here, because I know that there's a better conversation to have. And just like I said in my original post, when I posted our interview, you supported me. You were the only person that actually believed in me at first. I felt we were very close. 100%. You always held me high. You only always were extremely supportive and respectful. So that's why I know that there was a conversation to be had.
100%. And
that's why I trust you. That's why I listen to you.
And again, I think this is, out of 52 episodes, one of our top 10 most productive conversations that we have had on it. And I want to ask the question, because I'm looking at, God, what is this guy's name? I can't find it. This Rashad Turner is his name. He was a founder of Black Lives Matter in St. Paul. This is somebody specifically doing something. So he's now making the news, not because he left Black Lives Matter and said it was a garbage organization. If this is the good thing, he's making the news because he's saying that while he has actually done something, he has started, I'm trying to figure it out. He's got, where is it? He started essentially this organization that is reuniting Black families, allowing the family nucleus to stay together, doing these amazing things in the community. What Black Lives Matter couldn't do with the $100 million, they couldn't even do in one city. So what were your opinions on Black Lives Matter?
My opinion on Black Lives Matter as and that's the interesting thing, as just a proclamation, it's true. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
And I think that there's a lot of people, and this is where your branding can be almost too good for your own good, in a sense, because that phrase is just Black Lives Do Matter. That's true. You know what I mean? I'm not even going to venture to say that because that's just a speculation. When saying Black Lives Matter, just mean that. You know what I mean? When I've said it, now that it really is now that the movement has become about the organization or vice versa, whichever way it happened first. I mean, it was just a hashtag, Black Lives Matter. You can hashtag and say something, and it doesn't mean that you're representing the organization. So I agree in the actual phrase, and I don't see why that has to be such a bad thing. But the organization, how people feel about what they've done and what they're doing is completely understandable. That there's always more to the story. So that's how I feel about Black Lives Matter.
And I've had to think through that in my head because, again, I think the same way, the same reason why I continue to always support my Black friends in their business endeavors when I had the money to do it. I go, well, Black lives do matter. And you know what? They've had a shitty run in this country for a long time. And, we've had Memorial Day this last week. And it also was what anniversary of the Tulsa? It was 100 year of Tulsa. And I don't mind that the vice president brought up Tulsa. You can't change the anniversary date, and it's a shitty part of history. And it shows the struggle that Black people have had in the last century. So when you look at the struggle and the issues, but you then bring up the concept that right now we live in 2021. Branding is everything. And the brand that people are wearing isn't just something written on a sheet of paper that say Black Lives Matter or whatever it is. When your movement has been bogarted by one of the most corrupt organizations, and I'm going to say this, in United States history, I think they have done just as much damage to Black culture and to the ability for Black people to get it, because it's caused people, by the way, to become racist. The people that were leaning on the racist side are now like, that Black Lives Matter organization, F them and all Black people, which is bullshit. They don't speak for all Black people.
Right.
But until Black people and the white liberal, specifically the white liberal as Malcolm X referred to, shut the fuck up and about this plight that is being set up by BLM, and also then speak the fuck up to shut up Black Lives Matter and say, this is not what we're a part of. We, like what you just said.
I don't feel like Black Lives Matter is even, from what I've seen, people have moved away from Black Lives Matter largely. I could be wrong, but I don't watch the news.
It's just now getting official. You know who was the last people to move away from Black Lives Matter? White liberals. Super weird. Am I right, Suni? Was that the last people to move away from BLM? The white liberal?
I mean, are we here? I'm not even seeing, I don't see people wearing the shirt. I mean, I feel like it's been since last year. I mean, but I could be wrong.
I think it's in the last few months, especially with Patrice Cullors buying $3 million worth of homes. But ultimately, we have to realize it's essentially like, I'll say, even though I had nothing to do with the KKK, I will say that was the shittiest fucking thing ever. That was terrible. That was a horrible organization. Probably worse than Black Lives Matter. Definitely worse than Black Lives Matter. That is probably one of the worst organizations in the history of the United States of America. 100%. But I'm white, so I'm going to call that out, I guess, because I have to. But at the same time, in order for progress, in order for us as a country that we moved past the KKKs, even though they're still small chapters and they suck and whatever, we moved past them having any power by saying, us white people, we don't agree with that. That's bad. The same thing has to happen from the black community. They have to step up and say, my life matters. I get it, but that's some bullshit. And the more that happens, the more we can start coming together and having that conversation. It does take acknowledgement to move forward, just like acknowledgement of Juneteenth, acknowledgement of the Tulsa riots, acknowledgement of Black Wall Street. All of it takes acknowledgement, but we don't harp in it. We don't harp in it.
I'm definitely gonna challenge you on these things. Everything that you've mentioned is a terrible part of Black history. Do you know how tired we are of hearing of all the bad things that have happened to us? Those are the only things we highlight. People get mad. Oh, you don't never talk about Black people in a positive light. I actually do, but the Black people I talk about, you give them a finger and you say, fuck you. Ben Carson is a coon. For what? Clarence Thomas is a coon. For what? Thomas Sowell is a coon. Why? And if that's the case, a lot of Black folks don't even know who this man is. They don't even know who Thomas Sowell is.
I got dinged. Hold on, Michelle. I got dinged for sharing by a white liberal friend, the same one that's been picking on me a lot lately. I got dinged for sharing a Thomas Sowell quote, by the way, because it was hateful. Anyways, but I get what you're saying, Suni, and I apologize. I didn't mean it that I meant to acknowledge the fact that it has happened. No. I don't want to bring it up.
Yeah, no,
it's not directed towards you.
This was a weekend for it to be acknowledged. It's in the news. It is something that one of the only survivors just made a testimony about. So it's a timely time to talk about it.
I get it. Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at. I
understand what you're saying, Suni, too, because and outside of politics, we do need. I mean, in schools and every day, we need to just celebrate people that are doing good things, no matter who they are. And we need to see more of a variety because there's a lot of different people that are doing good things. So I agree with you that we definitely should highlight more of the good that people are doing. I mean, I wasn't afraid to go. What was that saying? No.
BLM logo is still on the NBA background during the halftime show about a week ago.
That's because they want to make money, man.
But what I saying is that yes, we need to be highlighting. We get to highlight other people that are doing great things. I think that if we all spent more time highlighting people that are just doing amazing things as individuals in tech and business and just different things like that, that's how we elevate. That's how we all can elevate together, rather than pointing the fingers at how people are doing things wrong. That's how I feel like is a good way to go.
Agreed.
Go ahead. My sister's 18. My sister has no clue who any of these people are. Her world is Twitter. Twitter is racist. America's racist. We don't have. This generation is growing up with some very untruthful things being spoken to them. And it's our responsibility because my mother's generation let me down. The only thing they taught me was civil rights, and that's not even my reality. I don't have to be afraid to walk down the street. I can go. In fact, 9 times out of 10, I've always made more than my white counterparts because of my accolades, because of what I went to school for. She doesn't even, her world is racist. Who would I be to just, I'm not going to talk about these negative things. I'm just going to highlight the positives. And she's got it in her mind that white people hate her. The youth needs to know the truth.
I definitely don't mean that. I agree with you, Suni, because I'm going to watch the show more often just to get more of a well-rounded view and to think things differently, because that is true. It's not, of course, doesn't mean I'm going to agree with everything, but it doesn't mean I may not, because I do agree with you, Suni. I think that I think that it's not to not talk about the negative, but it's to also amplify the things that we want to see more of, because I actually do believe that what we focus on is what is going to be amplified. So
and that's a huge problem with that to critical race theory. It goes back to the charity that we were mentioning before, that they are propagating the problems, and the philosophy should be mention the problems, show the progress, and then what can go from there. But right now, we've literally taken the problems and just amplified those. even Oprah. I don't know how a black person can get ahead. Woman, you legit are worth billions of dollars. How about you show people how you did what you did? Hard work, having a positive attitude, and realizing that the American dream is not just for white people, but instead this woman that is mega successful, LeBron James, Oprah, Sharpton, all these people, they feed off of the oppressive mentality, and that is the last thing that's going to help anyone. And as a motivational speaker, Michelle, and the fact that you do coaching as well, you know this. If you pour into somebody's victim mentality and give them a reason to continue to be a victim, they are never going to get out of it. And that is what our school system is teaching. That is what certain organizations are preaching. And this whole racist division is not going to help black people, not because I say it, but because this is the concept of psychology. If you tell people they don't have a chance and it's going to be really, 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 really hard and way harder, the chances of them coming out of it and being the next Clarence Thomas are slim and none.
Can I just bring up one thing that?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, Suni, go
No,
ahead.
you go ahead, Suni.
I just want to show you what content creators, especially black conservatives, what we're up against. I don't get the attention that I used to. I could get 2,000 or 3,000 people in a live and be good. I used to have 10 to 30,000 views on my videos. We're forced to fight this. This is what, and I don't like Fox News either. I think they're terrible. Biden's Tulsa trip, racial wealth gap policies highlight stark divisions on race issues, as it's perpetuating the narrative that there are no middle class, successful, rich black people.
Right.
Where is the racial wealth gap? If you don't put in the hard work, you won't get crap back. This is the only thing we're fighting against. If I get on here and talk, I'm dispelling a lie so that people can wake up from whatever slumber they're in, because this is crap. On the day you visit Tulsa, now there's uproar and we got more race issues going on. When does it stop?
And I would honestly say that
Why is he wearing a mask?
from my perspective,
Why is he wearing a mask? Is he wearing it? Scroll up. He's outside. He's inoculated. He's still virtue signaling. Sweet Jesus, make it stop. Sorry, go ahead.
Virtuous is a good thing. But anyways, what I do want to say is that in the fact that was Black Wall Street and they blew it up, that I can understand why. In the context of that trip, I could understand why he would talk about that. Because it
gets views. This is called already pandering for the 2024 election, when it's actually going to be, he won't even be around. It'll be Kamala anyways. But the question then becomes, logically, if you look at that, it's got nothing to do with the wage gap or the wealth gap. It has to do with the education gap. That's the only factual thing. Inner city schools are absolute garbage. Do you know who runs inner city schools? Is, for the most part, usually Democrat leadership is in charge of the school districts in shitty neighborhoods, in shitty schools, which are unfortunately predominantly African American. So what did the last administration do? Created a whole charter program, vouchers, that we don't know if it would have worked, but holy shit, it's a step up. And somehow
I was the first one to say that was a great. I was like, hey, at least somebody's addressing it. I was the first. He was going to do a whole platinum plan, or at least talked about it. And I said, well, hey, at least. But isn't that in itself an acknowledgement that there is an issue?
Yeah.
And that he was the only one that actually acknowledged it.
Right. I believe as though, and this is, if this, and nobody has to say who they voted for, but I believe as though you voted for Biden. If you would look back at the decision-making, where we are now, the lack of conversation he has had for the Black community in any way, shape, or form, yet he rode them all the way to the bank.
Yeah.
Do you think that maybe, and especially learning a little bit more about the Wuhan lab, learning about any other issues that have come up, what do you feel, and this is where we're going to wrap the show, what do you feel about your vote now?
I am so glad you asked that, because I know you had posted something and said, how do you feel about your leader now? This may be a point to think about for the Republican Party. I don't think people so much voted for one person. As it felt like the Trump show with Trump in office. It felt like anytime someone had a differing opinion, that he was ready to fire people. It just seemed like it felt more like a dictatorship-ish way. I feel like with Biden, I think what people were thinking was that, hey, people are going to get a chance to actually do their job and be able to make their own decisions. And it's not going to be this big personal battle. That's how it felt. So I don't see the presidency as one person. I really don't. I see that the government should be people that are hired to do their jobs in their situations and have the chance to do that. So that would be my answer to that question. But the truth is that it's a lesser of two evils to me. I mean, I really don't believe that. I don't trust the government at all. I don't care who's in there. And that's just the way that I feel at this point. So my responsibility is to do me.
So you felt as though the lesser of two evils in November was Biden. Understandably, that's what you have the truth. That's what you have the right to do. The question becomes now, seeing what's been done, looking back at the charter schools, the voucher programs, the plans for the Platinum Plan, the prison reform, and then now looking at what's going on at the border currently, looking at what's going on overseas, looking at all the issues, looking at gas prices going up, looking at already having questions about future inflation, massive amounts of spend, paying more attention to the LGBTQ community instead of the BIPOC community. So with that said, do you still feel the lesser of two evils is Joe Biden?
I feel like they're both. I don't feel any better about Trump and his administration than I do about Biden's administration. That's the truth. I mean, to me, that's how I truly feel. I'm not defending either of them. And I'm not advocating either of them as individuals, as president and vice president. Now, as far as the people that are in their certain positions that are able to actually do their jobs, I feel like there's more of a chance for that. Instead of it being a whole bunch of drama, people are going to be able to actually do their jobs. That's where I'm at this particular moment. But I'll tell you one thing. What I truly feel at the end of the day is that it's just like what you're doing with your broadcast here and sharing your information and helping educate people. I don't feel like there's much more that we can look to the system to solve for us as Americans. That's how I feel.
The last question I'm going to have about the presidential stuff, because I don't think it's that important, but I am curious. So we named off the positives, and I know it's hard to see sometimes with Trump. We named off the positives with Trump that you agreed with. Charter schools, the potential for the Platinum Plan. I'm assuming you agreed with his move with prison reform. You did not agree, though, with him firing people, et cetera, which, again, these are lifelong politicians. This is the organization that we don't trust. So that we are on the same page. So he got rid of people quickly, understandably. But we've named a few good things that we are looking back on. What have you seen as any positives in the last 4 months?
Well, one thing is that, and this is just the truth, is that I have felt like there is not as much of a racist outpouring projection towards me. And now listen, I've gotten trolled personally for things that I've said, and I've gotten called. I posted it on Facebook. Someone was I've gotten people to be racist towards me and talk about, whenever they get into the liberal conversations. I've had personally I had a manager that said during the last administration, I had a manager that was like, oh, you can't have any of this cake because it's for white people only. Just kidding. Like, the openness to be like that has kind of went in, and I'm on a personal level, that's just how I felt. And that is important to me. So that's the environment that has changed. It's not it feels to me like it's less super.
What does that have to do with the president? That has to do with maybe the media and maybe your own personal beliefs. But I'm asking, is there anything that the current administration that has done that's actually been positive in your mind besides how you feel?
Um, I haven't really, and just to be really honest, I haven't really thought about it. I mean, I feel like one of the things that he's done has been being supportive for people in this pandemic, and financially, people are afraid to go back out there and to expose themselves. And then you have on the other side of it, you've got people that have met, that are having thousands of people in front of them. Like I used to serve, I was a server. I don't necessarily, I wouldn't want to be serving in an environment where there's people just not wearing masks. And I know that everyone says that the masks are ineffective, but for me, it's still scary. My uncle died. I saw it happen. You know what I mean? I experienced that. And so if it makes me feel a little bit safer when there's thousands of people that are coming into my environment, into a restaurant, I can understand that. That to me, it is how I feel, but I understand that, but only because I've been through it. So those types of things are, I
want Suni to talk about feelings, because her opinion on thoughts and feelings in a second. The last thing I will say is, and I'm literally doing everything I can. I don't want me to say that you're being selfish. My thought process on that kind of mentality is because of you putting your feelings and thoughts about your personal experience that far ahead of the greater good for even people can be deemed as selfish. There's nothing good that's happening for Black people right now. The Hispanic community right now is in peril at the border, and it's not even being addressed by the current administration. There's kids being raped and abused at the border. So you're not even a server anymore, but it would make you feel better to have a president that signals that masks might make you feel more comfortable, when in all reality, the world in some ways in our country is falling apart at the seams and people's lives are at stake. Children are being raped at the border. People are still continuing to lose their livelihoods. Inflation is about
I'm not saying that. I want to be very clear. I'm not saying that I am.
And I know, and I'm trying to say. I
just want to make sure that's.
I know. I'm saying that. I'm saying that thought process of, well, I feel better because the president made it seem like we should be wearing.
I didn't say that. You asked me. You really were asking me, like, is there anything that I am in full agreement? And I'm not saying that I feel better because Biden's president because of that. I think that's very important to make clear. That's all.
Okay.
Continue.
That's fair. That's fair. No, that is fair. And you didn't say it that way. So I understand that. I understand what that's what you meant. But I'm saying if that's the trade-off, to me, it's not even a question of the lesser of two evils. I am glad that some people feel a little bit more comfortable about certain things, but there's people that you feel more comfortable that somebody, and I'm going to just say, somebody feels more comfortable about working in a restaurant because they feel as though the president has their back to not wear a mask or to wear a mask, and people protect. I'm not saying just you, I'm saying whatever. I feel people feel more comfortable being able to fight something that's got a 99.95% survival rating on people under the age of 35. It's got a very, very small chance of death, and that's what's saving it. Yet there are people right now that are dying because of inadequacies at the border. And we've shown these things, yes. Oscar de la Hoya, and there's people that are continuing to live in poverty. There's people continuing to have bad education. And honestly, one of the biggest things, as we talked earlier, and all science points, kids shouldn't be at risk. We've had schools continue to be closed that the Biden administration has promised to open that are still not at 100%, even though there's absolutely no reason for there not to be. And you know who gets hurt the worst? Underprivileged youth, Black, brown, etc. So this is the future of our country getting even more separated on an educational level because of, and I know that you're not saying this, but the one thing that you can point out is that it makes people feel a little bit more comfortable. And I think that's insane. And I'm not saying you're insane. I'm saying I think that's insane that that's the only positive thing that anybody can say.
And that's why what I want to make clear is that, first and very importantly, I am in a situation right now where I am getting to a place of being able to see what kinds of things that I can do to be helpful, to gather, to create communities, to actually
Oh, did she freeze? Michelle, I'm gonna pop her back
Me?
up. Oh, there you go. You're back. Go ahead.
Okay. No, what I was saying is that what I'm saying, I think it's important that, first of all, at the time of that decision, of that voting decision, a lot had happened. So there was a lot going on. You know what I mean? Now it's 4 months in. Do I expect everything to have, flipped and reversed, in the words of Missy Elliott? No. You know what I mean? There are things that will take time. But
we fell off a cliff. We fell off a cliff. Things haven't reversed. They have fallen off of a cliff. For those that pay attention, and I know I don't want people to have to pay attention to media all the time, but for those that are actually seeing what's going on in the country, we have fallen off of a cliff. Our gas prices are up $1. There is a crisis at the border that was caused directly because people thought that Biden would let them in. Now they're just letting them in anyways. There's more crime. There's Molly Tibbetts case from 2018 that involves this that gets no media coverage. It's an illegal immigrant that killed her, and nobody seems to care except for just the family. There's so many different things that have fallen off a cliff. This isn't about a slow process of reversal. This is about how do we stop the bleeding that has been made worse since the new administration has gone in. I don't want to circle on the president. I apologize. Right. I want Suni to go.
But my main thing is that us talking together, us getting on, and that's my point too, getting off of politics and actually figuring out how we can come to an agreement and how we can move forward is way more important than, what you think is better because of one side or one person. And I think it's better because of one person, because that's not going to, clearly, then that's not solving our problems either way. And it hasn't been.
I get it. And that's why the media, it really is the biggest problem. Suni, go ahead and go. And then I'm going to end it with addressing GH, talking about the black vote. Michelle, you can stay up here. We're going to all wrap it up together. You're good. Soon, let's go for it. You're muted. Feelings.
Okay. I'm very direct. So don't take anything I'm saying personal, because you're not the only person that has voiced these things. Feelings are destroying our country.
I agree.
Participation trophies, people feeling entitled. I feel like this, I feel like that. They're not rational. And to be super honest, the only people who care about your feelings, my feelings, Russo's feelings, are the people that we wake up and go to sleep with every day. The world,
I agree.
They don't give a crap about how we feel. And this is my really true and honest personal belief. People say I voted for the lesser of two evils to make themselves feel better about why they voted the way they did. And this is just my personal opinion. There is absolutely nothing that Trump did that even embodied a dictator. Everybody had a choice. One thing that he did as a president is he gave the states back their rights to make decisions for themselves. Before that, the Fed was in everything. So everything that happened to people, it was because of your governor, because of your mayor, because of your state legislators, because of your city council. But for some reason, it's Trump's fault. You know what Trump did with COVID-19? Here you go. Here's a guideline. Take it. You guys decide what you're going to do with your states. Trump didn't say this. Well, what am I supposed to do? I'm talking about the mayors and the governors. Well, Trump didn't do this. Where is your accountability? Why are we mad at states for how they handled this? Why is Cuomo getting off murdering thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of old people? Why is Gavin Newsom getting off murdering people, straight murdering people? We have a president that said, get vaccinated or wear a mask. Those are your two choices. That's a dictator.
And he said, we the people he said the government is we the people, which is actually completely incorrect. But go ahead.
It's frustrating.
Right. And just to say, I don't think that there should be mandatory vaccines. I honestly don't. I don't necessarily think that you should have to wear a mask. I just understand because what happened to my uncle my niece came home from going out drinking because she went partying in her birthday. And here in Texas, it was like open, closed, open, closed. She was young. She came home and infected the entire family. And then my uncle, it was in El Paso. I don't know if people know this. That's why it's kind of important to talk about why I can understand. And it's not all about empathy. It is about facts. But why I can understand that as a human being, when you're in a city like El Paso, where it got so bad that the emergency rooms were actually full here. Like all the emergency rooms were full. When my uncle got sick and he couldn't breathe, the ambulance came and took him to an urgent care center because all of the hospitals were full. All the beds were full. Like, that's just a different emotion. I mean, and I know you're, not to be emotional, but that changes the way that you see how that these leaders, they're human beings. And what do you do in that situation when you're renting refrigerated trucks to put the bodies in because the morgues are full? It changes a little bit of how you experience the gravity of what's happening. That's what I'm saying. I hope that makes any sense. I mean, I'm not trying to change your mind, but I'm saying that does bring it to a different emotional level than when you're just watching that happen in a city.
So as we've seen, the mishandling, a lot of it was because people were being told to go back home in the beginning. We literally, I mean, there was a mishandling, and that was not from the federal level. That was not from Trump. That was from Dr. Fauci and some of those suggestions saying, but, go back home, don't inoculate other people. So again, it was why the beds were full, and they were full in El Paso. Stevie, Stevie, I'll just say your name there. They were full there. They were full in a couple other places. They were full again because of small hospitals in that area. They were full because of mishandling it from the early stages.
And I'm not even trying to policy it. Like, I'm not trying to I'm not coming from a political side. I'm just saying that it's hard to not have the humanity of the situation.
So I have a humanity question before we go. I know we keep spinning. You blamed it on your niece. From a humanity,
I'm not blaming it on her.
You did.
I don't want it to come off as a blame. I'm explaining to you what happened. I'm not. Well, let me rephrase that. I'm probably being defensive for no reason. I'm explaining to you that she came home, she was sick, and then everyone else got tested, and then my uncle got sick a few days later. So I'm not like blaming it in a I'm not blaming her. It's the circumstance. It's what happened.
Clear, she could have got it not just from the bar. She could have got it from running an errand at the grocery store. She could have gotten it from so many different ways. And I think that even referring to it to that is putting so much. So unfortunately, your uncle is no longer here. The person that is here is your niece, that I'm sure is dealing with a lot of guilt, especially if I'm sure a lot of the family, if that's the way you say it, a lot of the family's probably saying it the same way, and she probably is dealing with that every day. And I hope that somebody can tell her that it might not have been from her partying. And also, unfortunately, sometimes people die of heart attacks. People die of unfortunate things. And I hope that your niece does not take the blame for that.
I talk to her all the time. I'm just expressing to you the chain of events, because that's just how it happened. I'm not blaming it on her.
I know.
And so I'm glad that you said that, because she was sick, and then they all got tested. Everyone was fine. She was sick. Everyone else was fine, but they went to get tested. And then that's when everyone else ended up getting it later. So she had it first. That's what I'm explaining. So I'm explaining that those circumstances just make you see things different. And then on top of that, when the whole meltdown of the whole situation, I can understand why somebody in positions of authority can be overly concerned when they see something like that happen, that they would want to take extra protocols. That's what I do.
Here we go.
Go ahead.
My life is being affected because of all the people that voted for Biden. Every other military spouse is too. So were you guys selfish in what you did? Because our lives are affected. I could take the same stance and turn it and make you feel all type of sympathy for me. But at the end of the day, feelings don't matter.
I'm not even trying to make anyone feel any type of way. I'm trying to help you to see that what I'm trying to illustrate is that it's not so black and white when you have people when you have people in influential that have to make decisions based on everyone, based on their constituents or whatnot, that it's not always such a black and white issue when you have to deal with something that just blows up like that, you know? But that's another reason why I was telling you that people need coaches at all levels, because you're right, you can't think emotionally, but you have to understand that when you are in a city where that's what happened, where everything failed around you, it can be understandable why people would want to err on the side of caution. That's all. That's what I'm saying. But maybe not. But whatever.
So I think we're pretty good to wrap up. This is a way longer show than I was expecting. I think it's been a great show. There's some Chris. No problem. Yeah, I'll go ahead and let you go, Michelle. Thank you very much for being here. I think the comments on the side were incredibly peaceful. I think of that. Suni, do you have any final comments or questions for Michelle before I let her go and we wrap it up?
No.
And I want to say, Suni, thank you for your information, because there's a lot that you explained today that I didn't know or didn't even think about. So based on what both of you have said, it's my responsibility to do a little bit more, or quite a bit more, learning about certain things, and then that way I can know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? And that way I can know what not to put my feelings in. You know what I'm saying? There is a difference between factual and fiction. And I want to say right now that I am not an expert. I did not come on here to be the person to battle or to say that any side is right or wrong. I came because Anthony's my friend. I just want to make sure that that's clear, because I'm not acting like I should have had all the information, because that's not what I came for. I came to have a conversation, and I came because Anthony so thoughtfully asked me to come on and have this clearing conversation with him. In my relationship with Anthony, I care about him. You've made great points, and like I said, I'm not happy with this administration. So I want to make sure that 1000% clear, you know? So, and yes, were there emotional things that went into decisions? Absolutely. Do we need to change that? Absolutely. How do we do that? Have these conversations and continue to have these conversations. I think, that's the best way that we can do it.
Love it. Mama Russo said she liked your demeanor. You did great. That's Mama Russo for you right there.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much. It's really all love, and what the things that you all said to me sounded like the truth. So I'm not going to argue for the sake of argument. That's not helping.
I feel you. Michelle, take it easy. Thank you so much for coming on. And remember, the truth will set you free.
Yes, I know that, and I believe it. And I thank you so much, and much love to you, and I appreciate your time. Have a good night.
Take it easy. All right. Really, that's when you block off soon? Soon. That wasn't the end of the show. Come on back. Stop puffing the jewel. Jesus. All right. GH is on fire over there. I know you're probably going to go to hot mic after this. Somebody said address GH's comments. I mean, I get it. You can dislike Trump. You could do. He said that he mishandled the pandemic. He did all these different things. Everything hindsight is 2020. The things that he did and said were deemed as false then or true. I think there should have been an investigation. If we would have known the source is the Wuhan lab in the beginning and at least investigated things, you can actually know more about the complexity of this man-made virus, etc. All these different things. But GH, I put my email in the comments. Please, sweet Jesus, please, God.
He's going to come on hot mic.
Do you know who it is? Do you know the person?
No, but he offered to come on. So, we're waiting, guy.
He did say something earlier about masking, and he's like, well, he told people not to wear masks. He never said not to wear masks. He said, wear them if you want to wear them. It's called being an American. And as we discussed earlier in the show on the doctor that you apparently will discredit because of your expertise as a Facebook warrior or YouTube warrior, you're disagreeing with science. And he said, he's just a Trump scientist. Here's the thing. There's two different schools. If you want to follow those that are paid by the federal government because you trust the federal government so much that those are the doctors that only those doctors that you want to follow, that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and follow those that aren't being paid off and aren't being put in front of a camera to speak. And
here's a question,
it makes
bro.
More sense.
What has Biden done that's any different?
He's done less.
Bye. See?
Brown. That
See?
sounds about right.
No thanks. This is what they do. They comment in the comment section. They're not factual in anything they say. And when you put them on Front Street, like, yo, come have a conversation. No, you are a Trump hater, period, point blank. You have nothing of substance to offer. And I'm going to say this. Russo's nicer to me, but I get tired of keyboard warriors and YouTube warriors feeling like they know something. And then when you put them up to task, they run and they're P words. So you just shut up in the comment section. Like, watch the show. You're not bringing anything constructive, bro. You have criticized Trump non-stop.
You know what's funny?
Stop.
The biggest unmasked event in the country that has happened, which was the January 6th event, and that's I'm calling it as an event, had almost 1 million people unmasked outside together. And I was just waiting for the media to find a way to say that this was, they said it was going to be a super spreader. The fact that even the media could not find the data or skewed data to show that that was a bad situation shows you how big of bullshit it was, because there was 1 million people, and I could tell you it was 15 to 20% masked, people bumping up against each other. So Trump failed as a president when it came to the pandemic. He lied to the American public about the severity. He actually kept people calm in the beginning because ultimately there's no way to fully control Americans. That's who we are. And he made a choice. Could have been the right one, could have been the wrong one. We don't know. We really don't. And
what did Biden do different?
And he consistently caused outbreaks through his rallies promoting anti-masking. Well, he never promoted anti-masking.
I went to a rally and nobody at the rally I went to had COVID. Nobody.
If GH, I know you're not going to come on a show, so you can send through your computer a clip, your big boy computer, a clip of Trump telling people to not wear masks ever.
Do it.
Cause outbreaks, maybe genital warts outbreaks. That's the only thing he caused because people were partying.
Hey, sorry, I'm hungry. Didn't we continue to have COVID cases when people were wearing their masks? Or did I just imagine that?
We actually have less deaths now. I mean, I get you can say that it's because of the V word, but we have less deaths to actual COVID numbers ratio now that the masking is up. Super weird.
Man.
Okay, no, they didn't. 550,000 people died in our country during COVID. It wasn't under his watch. Like, that is the most ignorant statement. It always makes me laugh when people are like, it was under 550,000 were his fault. Okay, then so Are we blaming every death on the president of their country, like the respective country? Is India's deaths, is Canadian deaths, is Italian deaths, whatever? Is that, I mean, should we just, how about we blame it on the Wuhan lab where it came out that we can now finally say these things? Blame it on the people that are taking over the world by buying up property in the United States. Look at the automotive dealerships. We can't get cars because we can't get computer chips from China. I wonder why it could have been a complete accident. It's alleged that it's not an accident, but let's really look at what's going on in the geopolitical climate of the world. China, during the pandemic, they were on the way down because of Trump. He was screwing them in trade. What? You're muted, Suni. You're muted.
You are pissing me off. I hate stupidity, bro.
What did he say? Hold on. So let me finish
Cuomo
this.
Doesn't matter. All the other governors that were over their states, they don't matter. It was Trump's fault. Bro, get the fuck out of here.
And what about Cuomo? What about the fact that Trump provided a gigantic warship or whatever it was for them to use, that Cuomo, because of his political side, said, I don't need Trump's help. And now they're saying, well, he just made $5 million on a book, that he killed a bunch of people by those decisions, then hid the numbers. But no, 550,000 deaths is Trump's fault. Also, the doctors were saying ventilators were the save-all, were the cure-all. Trump had nothing to do with that. He was waiting for the doctors to come out. Fauci was the one leading the charge on the ventilators and all these different things. Fauci was the one that said masks don't work, and then Fauci said it did. This isn't under Trump's fault. This is a blunder across the board on all levels. Trump was imperfect. Everyone was imperfect. And to blame 550,000 deaths, you're an idiot.
Hey, a ship that they never freaking used. They wasted tax dollars on something they never used, but it's Trump's fault.
Well, he said Cuomo wasn't a great leader. So He's actually
Bad
agreed
man
a
orange.
decent amount.
Oh, wait, orange man bad.
Trump was willfully negligent. I'm having fun with this. Somebody keep, since I don't think he's going to come on your show, we'll just do it here. I'll say that Trump was willfully negligent in his behaviors and activities during the pandemic, holding rallies, bringing COVID into the White. Did he bring it in a box? Was it a present? Did he bring it like a little jar? Like, oh, look at this mason jar of COVID. Everybody have some. And then meanwhile, you got Chris Christie, who's 150 pounds overweight that almost dies from COVID. And instead of making a statement saying, maybe I should take better care of my health, as should the American public, I put myself at risk, he said, man, I should have been more serious about those masks. That, sir, is why you did not win the Republican nomination. Lack of accountability.
It's not because you're big as hell.
I didn't say that. She did.
It's not because you're fat as hell. I'll say it because he's fat and nasty. It's not because you're fat as hell and you got moose knuckles that look like dang, what are they called?
Moose knuckles.
Camel toes.
So do we know what's going on with Casey? I know Casey couldn't make it tonight. I'm changing the subject because you're talking about camel toes. Oh my God, it's so good.
Oh man, we're so uncomfortable.
I'm not. What do you mean? I'm not considering your points. Did Trump not give his family COVID? It's like the guy from what's the name of the movie, The Hangover? But did they die? No, because they had treatment. Jesus Christ, I can't. Was he not a vector in his activities? Okay.
What the fuck is a vector, man?
Well, he's saying was he like the I guess, I mean, vector is not the right word to use there, but was he a catalyst? Catalyst might be the word you're looking for.
He tried to use big words and not an epic fail.
I mean, vector kind of works there, but whatever.
Listen,
Jonathan,
I'm gonna say this and I'm out.
All right, you can wrap it.
When you gotta pull this up. Come on, man. He was big, wide, and all outside. And he got COVID because he's not healthy. Just like the doctor told us. If you lead a healthy life, guess what? You're going to have a cool immune system. Maybe HG is a little overweight like Chris Christie and all the other people. So he's tripping out about COVID because he made terrible decisions in his life. And because you made those decisions, I'm not responsible for your bullshit. No. Go get healthy and take care of yourself and stop worrying about what other people are doing, period. Trump's not in office. Move on.
So vector is technically a mathematical term that is quantity with both magnitude and direction. Like velocity is a vector. Describes how fast something is moving. So it's a description of something. In the medical dictionary, it could be it's a quantity that has magnitude and direction, usually representative. Oh, did she leave? Representative of part of a straight line with given direction and length representing magnitude. Let me read this comment again. Where'd it go? Before we wrap the show, we're learning what vector means. I don't know where the comment went. Okay. Was he not a vector in his activities? Was he not a vector? Was he not the magnitude and direction? I'm still going to say catalyst was a better word. He was the one that led the activities, I guess. That's really, I'm going to say at best, it's a very weird choice of words. Anyways, vector is also a public health term. I just said the medical definition of it. So cool. Ladies and gentlemen, what a show. Please share this out there. As a reminder, I'm sure Suni's about to do hot mic. If you want gear, it is 25% off until tomorrow. If you use the code long weekend, you all know what that is making a joke about. So if you use the Memorial Day code long weekend when you're checking out at hashtag BetheChange.com. I'll go ahead and put that on the bottom. Let's see, hashtag BetheChange.com/shop. Just go ahead and go there. And we've got a bunch of different stuff. Awake, Not Woke. We've got Be the Effing Change, Action Over Awareness, and some more stuff coming soon. But for now, that sale 25% off, which is essentially just what we pay for it. So we're trying to get as much out there as possible. Please take advantage of it. Support us. Support me. Support Be the Change. All of us as a group. And if you'd like to support us more, I know that I know Erica started up a page for Patreon. We also have Patreon still. We're also using that to support Cash. giving as much detail as we can get. GoFundMe, on a good note, GoFundMe is actually finally allowing us to pull the money that everybody donated so that we can get the lawyer for his appeal, for Cash's appeal. So there's all the information below. GH, you're always invited to come on a show because I would love to chat with you. Trivia, perfect. Chris Lancaster, Nikki is reaching out to you. Chris, what video are you talking about? Say it real quick. Let's see, Chris. So we are taking note of everybody, and we're going to get a hold of everyone. If you want, go and throw your email again in here. But Nikki and Christine and the teams are getting together. I don't know what's going on with Casey. I know that he was in either the hospital yesterday or today. So send prayers. I have no idea what's happening. I'm going to reach out to him after the show. I just found that out. Oh, Chris, we need your email. According to Nikki, we need your email. Your YouTube, so it's harder to track down. So please put your email in the box. I'm going to wait until that's over so you can put it in. Talking about Cash when she was talking to Congress. About 2 weeks ago, she was talking about people like Cash in general. Chris would video. Fauci, I don't. I've seen it, though. But people's commentary on that is that he was just using the law of averages. He didn't say that it would be an earth-shattering pandemic. He was saying that every 2 years something comes out. That is the way that is responded to. That's all I got for you guys. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Unite, don't fight. Be a street light. Chris, please put your info in the box. Go ahead and put it in the comment box. Thank you guys. Appreciate you all for being here. Continue to share this. We've got 105 reactions. Anybody on right now, please do that. Get it out there. As we can see, the algorithm sucks for conservative shows. And I'm sure there's a hot mic coming up. So check out Suni over there at Suni Hot Mic. Thank you guys for joining us. And as I just said, be the change you wish to see in the world. And speak up.